everyone, and welcome to another episode of this group discussions we've just started recently. And I don't know if you watched it, the last one that I did like a week ago, which was I think in March 10th. Today is March 17th right now, 9:13 p.m. Istanbul time, and we have another panel and subject to discuss and talk about. And there's been a lot of positive feedbacks about this new format, so I'm hearing you all's the things that I should change, the things that I should add, and I'm trying to, implement those in this episode. But without further ado, let me just quickly go to the introductions. The today's panel that we have, the guests we have right now, first we have Daniel Chavez from episode 189, I think. Yes, 189. And then we have Darko Markovic from episode 175. Up next, Emily Reyna from episode 155. And next, Alexander Rostov from episode 191. And last but not least, Tiago Klavkia from episode 211. And well, a lot of these names you've probably heard during the my other episodes because they've been mentioned before, especially Tiago Klavkia because of his course. And fun fact, actually, a lot of people have used that course and just mentioned it. By the way, this isn't a plug or a sponsor thing. By the way, I just want to mention that. Even a lot of recent guests, have mentioned that. So, but without further ado, no, that's wrong. But whatever. What I'm going to say is our today's topic is also like last time it was about AI and what would we as artists do if AI took over everything or something. I know kind of cliche topic. You sue me, whatever. But today's episode is going to be a topic that I think is going to be really interesting to a lot of you, which is about world building and storytelling. And with that out of the way, I just want to, just bring up the first topic of this huge, gigantic, topic that, we can talk about for 10 hours at least. The first thing I want to mention is that, and ask every guest on this panel, is how, during your process and, pipeline of your work, how would you add some storytelling, elements to your piece to make the piece more rich and immersive? So the first guess I would like to ask that is from Daniel. So could you go ahead?
Um, it really depends on what the piece is for, really. If it's like a marketing thing, I try to probably ask the writing team, depending if it's like part of a project or if it's just personal. But I'd probably ask people that are involved with the writing for more input if they have more ideas to share or to basically just help me out. But if it's just for me, um, just really trying to find like a more of a meaning of the scene as opposed to trying to make it as pretty as possible. Um, like if it's a character that's like say they're waking up and an important part of the story, or if they're doing something very specific, I try to double down on that as opposed to having it as a setup and then just trying to render around it or something like that. I'd probably do that more than anything else. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a lot of that stuff is for me at least is based on instincts, so it's a bit hard to really say, oh, I just do A, B, and C. It really depends on the composition too, and the impact that I want the image to have more than just visuals. So it really depends. I would say it's like I would say do my best to do at least 50% of it to be cool looking, and then the rest I would try to have some sort of storytelling that is either outside of the frame and just try to inspire people to think about what's going on, or yeah, have some sort of balance where it's not just like a full pose action man and then that's um, yeah, that's like I think that's kind of my
All right. And all right, so up next we have Dharma. So go ahead.
Hello. So, storytelling is maybe the most important thing about design that people forget about. And I learned that very quickly because I was bad at drawing as a kid. I didn't start like many of you that I started drawing from the early age. I was drawing stickmans till age of 18. I like to say it like that. It's true. To be honest, it's true. And to make a good design or anything in art, you need to tell the story. But not only story. I have been dissecting that in my head for some time. You're not just telling the story, but it's literally like a movie. You have a story of a movie that is following the narrative, but then at the end of every great movie, you have answers to some things that you didn't even spot in the movie. And for me, the design is like that. So technically, you are giving expression of your story, where you are telling that story, and you are answering to questions to somebody who's viewing that image. There is also a famous quote, one painting, 1,000 words, even though it doesn't mean like that. They decipher that, but I will still use it. And I think it's very important to have a narrative because words form the visual piece and they're unavoidable.
All right, up next, Emily Rena.
Hello. Yeah, I would say pretty much like Daniel and Dharma. I mean, when it comes to professional work, I'll definitely go grab the narrative team or the game designers and the art director, whoever have something to say about what's has to be felt in the scene or the thing to be designed, the character, props, or whatever. And I wouldn't say I'm the best to answer this question, mostly because I usually focus when it's professional or personal work on isolated items. That doesn't mean there's no storytelling in those. They are definitely, because they are part of the environment, so they have to convey and add something to the scene. But how can I explain that? I don't do massive big scenes, I would say. Usually I do sometimes, but that's why I'm not the best to answer on this question. In comparing to Darko, who is actually building a massive world for almost 10 years now. I don't feel like I'm
Oh
the
yeah,
best to answer this
I
question.
forgot to mention actually that Inside 44 is in development, and hopefully it will be we get some sneak peeks and teasers soon from it as well.
Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you,
I'm
Emily,
sorry,
for
I forgot that.
reminding me that it's that you don't need to be sorry, but thank you, Emily. I wanted to interfere when you said you don't know to explain it, but you explained it quite good. I think you are undervaluing what you said, and I truly mean it when I say it because you said it very good. You circle it much better than I would circle it with my broken English in Serbian. But about Inside 44, let's not talk about it, please. It's on my head. 10 years,
Oh.
it's done. But we are waiting for industry to recover so I can finally sell all 3 books. Until then, I'm quiet like this. But everything is ready and done. Sorry for that.
All right, awesome. And up next we have Alexander Rostov. So, what do you have to, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Story. Oh my god. Maybe I have too many thoughts, and maybe my thoughts aren't well formulated enough to really put them into very concise sentences. I don't know. I make a picture, and the picture sometimes looks like a thing, and sometimes it looks like there are events happening on the picture, and that is a kind of story. If you want to make the story better, put a bucket in someone's hand. That's an interesting object. That makes everything look intriguing. If you want to make a story very boring, put a gun in their hand. That makes it look like every other image that you see out there. But to really twist this to the side, there's also another story that an image has. In I guess technical parlance, the narrative of a painting is also how an image is put together. And that is the thing that really interests me. I'm less interested in, the man is by the window reading a letter. What could be in the letter? There's a woman standing behind her, very shocked. Something is happening in the letter. But what's really interesting is when you look into the painting and you can see, just here where the paint is a little bit thinner, you can see that the artist started with ultramarine undercoat, so the blue is glowing through, and then has gone in and painted over. And you can see how an image has come together layer by layer. And somewhere under the thickness of the paint, you will see there used to be a hand here. Some fingers are still visible in the in the light thickness of the paint. And now you're really wondering, oh my god, what was happening there? That is a story that I like to look at when I look at painting.
All right, awesome. And up next, we have Thiago Klavke.
Hello. So I was trying to imagine, like the times where I think I did this very well, and the times I did not very well. And maybe this is true for me, right? I can only speak from a subjective point of view, but I feel like the times where the environments I created had the best storytelling was when I was letting the environment tell me what it needed, instead of trying to force what I wanted on it. If that makes sense. It's like a discovery process. Spending time with the environment, and then like the ideas they come, and those were my favorite works. And the ones that I was like, no, it has to be like this, and like I have this clear direction. I was trying to force it. Those were the ones that they were kind of blocked. I think that thoughts get on the way, and then it blocks the process. It's better when the process is just flowing, like when there's not a lot of thoughts. But of course, this is on a more artistic sense, right? Like if you work on a studio with like directors and all that stuff, like then you need some methodology. But I don't know. I like on a personal work, that's how I see it.
Well, yeah, these all have been like really interesting points and things to consider. But another part of like storytelling, as I think Alexander also mentioned about like having, for example, the example I just mentioned with like lighting something like a little bit ultramarine or something to represent a symbolic thing. I don't know, but the storytelling thing that I'm talking about is like adding like little things and details to the piece that kind of tells a story indirectly, like kind of that show not tell type of thing. Like for example in texturing in 3D, like for example you're doing like a ammo case, for example, and let's say it's from the game Helldivers, and you add some little bit of specific scratches to it to show, oh, it's been like scratched by some aliens. I mean, kind of in that sense, and I mean I'm not just talking about doing it in art, like trying to kind of add elements of the world in the things that that each specific element of that setting as well. I don't know if I'm conveying my like what I'm trying to mean like properly, but that's what I want to know more specifically in detail. Like how do you guys really go in detail and deep to add some immersiveness mostly to it? Like if you want to take it a step further, like, or throughout your experiences in your careers, what's good advice or tips and tricks have you learned throughout this time, if that makes sense. So actually let's do it right now. We did it like this way, but now let's do it this way again. So Thiago, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, because it's what Alexander said, right? It's such a deep topic, and a lot of this also Daniel said is in instinct. So I'm very careful with saying like, oh, there is a way to do things. It's some rules to follow, because those usually get on the way, I think. So a lot of times the environment tells me what it needs. It's like I'm walking around the environment and I feel like, oh, it would be cool to have something here. Or looking at pictures, like trying to pick out what's unique about the places. And especially if it's a place you can visit, those are the best ones to get inspiration. Because then you can really try to capture the senses, you feel the place. And an example I can give is when I worked on the Rome map on Overwatch. So that map was was inspired by like a trip I did in Rome. So I was in Rome for a week. It was like one of my biggest dreams to go there. So I was just taking pictures all day, and and I was really there, like really paying attention to the sounds, to the smells, to the architecture, to the textures, like how it's aged, like what's specific about that place. So when I was working on the map, it was all about converting my experience, so other people can also have like a sliver of that experience. So that's the part where I don't know if there is rules for this, like it's a lot of instinct and really listening to your voice, you know, and trying to find what's unique about that environment. What about the environment speaks to you on a personal level? Because if it is immersive to you, it will be immersive to other people.
Oh yeah, true. Like, of course, there's not always like a set of rules or things to follow for every piece or environment or even similar environments. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was just wondering, and asking for based on each individual experience, what are some of the things
Mm-hmm.
that you've realized that maybe intentionally or unintentionally has sneaked its way through your pipeline, in a sense. And yeah, that's basically the whole point. But of course, there's not like end all be all rules, as you said. But up next, again, we have Alexander Rostov.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, if you really want to get into storytelling by detail. Oh my God, storytelling. There's storytelling by structure, storytelling by, I don't know, psychological emotion, storytelling by detail. I have done the tutorial. The tutorial tells you that if you have a gun, you should put scotch tape around it. Someone has, with a marker, written their name or carved into the wood stock their name or whatever. Just like, and peel the paint from the corners. But these days, the software does that part automatically. Is there software now that automatically puts the tape around the barrel as well? I don't know. I think we're getting there. But I mean, well, that's the joke, I guess, that you just like add these, you come up with some sort of personal details and you just pile up these details until it starts making, I don't know, starts interacting with the wider context of what's going on in this story or in this project or wherever this piece of art is going into. But then, like, if an artist just does this and an artist scribbles some stuff somewhere, puts, I don't know, some or a level designer hides an apple in someone's desk drawer in a third-person action game that no one really sees. What's the point in that? And also, does the writing team of the project pick up on what the poor little artist has come up with his slow artist brain to make this story world building element in there? Do the writers pick it up and reflect back on it to the characters who are speaking? Do they comment on this? Does it become a thing, or is it just level editors doing environmental storytellings and industry artists doing art asset storytelling? I think it all needs to come together to act in something bigger. Then there's a point to it.
All right. And Emily?
I think I'm gonna take an example of some work I've done that's out there now. So I used to work on Elite Dangerous. It's a sci-fi game, exploration, fighting, etc. And you're piloting cool spaceships. And there was a moment in the story of the game where you get to meet a new alien race, which is called the Guardians, and you are able to use their technology and to mix it with the human technology to create a new ship. So that's what I'm gonna talk about. So we had to, I was tasked to design the first hybrid ship between those two races, so human and the Guardians. And why I'm saying that is mostly because the pitch was that it was supposed to look different from what we had as spaceships in Elite that were only human spaceships, at least that you could pilot. And there was a lot of research involved in trying to see how we could make that. Since it was the first ship, it had to feel like a prototype. So, it was not shiny, it was not super cool with cool curves and everything integrated like a new shiny Audi car, So there was definitely a lot of research on how do you make the interior of the ship look almost bare bone, you put things into some places to make them work, and that's it. There's no sugar coating on everything to make them look good. So I remember I did research a lot on the interior of rally cars, because they're nice at the exterior, but inside it's quite bare because they don't they need to have a certain weight, they need to have a certain rigidity as well for the car to drive well. And there is this, I don't know the name in English, but there's structures inside the car that makes the car rigid, and that also helps protecting the pilot. Those were elements I was trying to pick up from what we know as actual human technology, at least to mix it with this alien race to make it feel prototype. That's part of the storytelling, because that's what the player has to feel like when he's piloting this ship compared to other ships. And there is also other things like when they do a car crash test, sorry, with mannequins, they do have a sign which is round and black and white. And well, I was trying to pick up on all those little elements and actually dispatch them on the ship to make it coherent. And that's why I was saying at the beginning, usually I design isolated things that are part of the world. But that's how I approach the thing. So tons of researches on different things to pick up some elements and try to make it feel a certain way based on what us as human are used to feel and yeah, live in our environment and how we recognize things that we have every day around us.
All right. Dharma?
So when I was working on Inside 44, there it goes. I have to mention it, unfortunately. When I was working on it, I had the thing that had the most world building in it were the characters, of course, because characters tell the story. I mean, vehicle is there. I love designing vehicles. It's my specialty, but the vehicles are just there, and the character was completely different because it interacts and so on. It doesn't mean that the vehicle can't, but character has much more purpose in the story. And for me to entangle it in a storytelling, I always need to have a narrative where the story is going, but then the character eventually develops by itself. So when I was designing it, I was thinking a little bit further than the story. So it's literally bouncing between the past and the future, and that determines the design of that character. For example, Tiny the elephant that I like to post because it's my favorite character from the story. It's a little elephant, and that is humanoid-like. And he was inspired by my friend. And all of his flaws, and I will honestly say it, all of his flaws I transferred into him. And you can see that on the design because everything is energy in this world. So are the words, so is the behavior, so is everything. And you can see that on the object that you are designing. But you need to focus your brain. And one very important thing when you are designing anything or drawing concept art, doesn't matter, creating something, is to understand that you literally need to behave towards that design to have in your mind that you have public in front of you that is going to see that object. Doesn't matter what it is. And that object, you're not designing it for yourself. You already understand stuff. You read the script, you read this, you read that, But you need to understand that that script needs to go through that character and translate to the public. So they experience everything that you experienced when you were reading. So that's it.
All right. And Daniel?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I'm not a writer. Like, I don't know how to write stuff correctly either, even less. But I think when it comes to the right type of detail and stuff, I think it really depends on how far you really want to go into hand designing everything, how much time you have, how much energy you have for. If it's just one piece that you just want to make a cool illustration, if you really will want to go on this side and like spend an entire week just designing props to then put in the scene and stuff, like if you really want to go that far and make multiple angles and stuff, that's up to you. But I think in the end, I mean, I think what everyone has said is pretty valuable. I think it really depends on like what type of image you want to make and what type of world that you want to describe through the image. But I think there's something to be said about how much you want to design everything by hand and how much each thing mean. Like, for example, let's say you wanted to design a place where everything is low gravity, it's on some alien planet, right? You'll probably want to design things that fit that. Like if you just have like things sitting on the ground that maybe shouldn't be sitting on the ground or something, like I think it takes a certain amount of research for sure to be able to make all those things work together so that in the end you really have an image that have as much impact as possible, I'd say, or whatever it is that you want to design. Yeah, it's a bit hard to answer, I'd say, because it like if you want to go all the way down to like, oh, they don't have bolts in this world, they have some sort of special rope or something, right? Like it's like that by itself takes some time because you have to research like how do people make knots, what type of materials work and all that. And yeah, I think just for that it really depends on how far you want to go on the final thing that you're making. I think that's probably the best answer I can come up with.
All right, awesome. And well, dude, like whatever happens, with industry in the next couple of years, you have like your next job already set. I mean, we've already mentioned before the podcast. Definitely, like you can become an ASMR YouTuber or becoming like a voice actor. Like, man,
I think it's the mic. I think I just changed the equalizer on it.
sure. All right, that's interesting. And I already need to mention something, for anyone who's listening. Um, some of the guests here, I've told them before, some of them I didn't. But I had this plan of like doing group discussion podcast for like a year and a half now. So I think I mentioned in an email or I think an Instagram message to Dharma, I think, that, hey, in the future I might do like group discussion podcast, would you be interested? And it was like, yeah. And, how long has it been since then? I think I told you that on July 2022. And yeah, here we are a year and a half later. But I mean, we're still here, I mean, it's better to be, late than never, right? And so, all right, with everything, that's been said, and then I think another, interesting discussion, that we could have, like, in extension to this would be, what are some of your, best examples of storytelling and just design that you've recently seen in media? I'm talking about video games, I'm talking about movies, series, like anything. And in your opinion, if you could kind of dissect this issue right now, what, in your opinion, made that, piece of media really interesting from your artistic point of view? Because this is really interesting because all of you have like different backgrounds. So I'm really interested to hear all of your opinions, how do you, on your perspective in terms of technical stuff, of course, as well. But so again, Daniel.
Uh,
Yeah, you can just
well,
talk
the
during this whole
sad story.
podcast, to be honest. I'm just gonna listen.
Um,
Please
man.
don't spoil June.
I was gonna say, so the only probably the last piece of media that I've consumed was probably Dune, the last one. I actually don't really watch many shows or TV, or I play some more games than watching stuff. Man, I need to really think about that. I mean, I think there's a lot of cool ingredients. I don't know if I would say that I'm like satisfied with like how far sometimes people push some stuff. Like for example, okay. So recently I rewatched a specific scene in Prometheus, which is an older sci-fi movie at this point, I guess. But I'm always like a bit nitpicky with the flute playing of the pilots of the older sci-fi, like the engineers or whatever in the ship, because they're these like super brutal, very cold, like they just populate, kill, and create things, and then they just play the flute to start a ship. And the flute, and it's like very Earth influenced. It's like something that I used to play as a kid. Like it would have been cool if it was like maybe a little bit more alien, I guess. But even then, that's like veering even more away from something that people can relate to. So it's that's why I always have this like conflicted feeling whenever I watch like a very sci-fi based thing, because one part of me wants to see something that's like very, very different. It's like out of this world and completely crazy. Another part of me, I feel for people that feel alienated by things that are too alien and they can't relate, and they're like, oh yeah, there's this weird thing where they pull a leaf off of this branch and then these bubbles come out. It's like it's a bit hard to find a good middle, I guess. And I feel like that's the part where it takes a very specific talent, I guess, to find like a narrative or a design or something in your story in the game or something that really fits like just right in the middle. And that's why I feel like Dune, the newer movie and kind of the older movies too, or the older movie, kind of like they toe that line a little bit fairly well, I would say, because I think most people watch those movies and they feel like they've been on a trip. Especially the older ones, there's like a lot of crazy stuff in it. But yeah, it takes like a specific, it's like a specific line that you have to walk on to be able to find something that's right in the middle, where it's like you feel like you're somewhere else, but at the same time, you still can have a good grip on what's going on. I also need to watch Scavengers, the HBO show, animated thing, because I keep hearing good things about it, and I kind of want to wait before watching it, but I have to. But yeah.
All
All I can
right.
say.
So, Yarmar?
I have object here. Just a sec.
Awesome.
One of my favorite objects in my house, and it's Philip Stark design. And I may work in movies and games, but I overlap also industrial design and so on. And this is definitely one of my favorite designs ever created. Philip Stark created this for Alessi, and they told him, we want something very unorthodox into design, if you can imagine something. And I think it's one of the hardest assignments that a designer can get, to tell him design something unorthodox. And the rumor, the story is that he went on a lunch after Alessi, and he's a French designer, by the way. And I heard that he charges 1 million. It doesn't matter what he designs, 1 million per project now. He is the top 3 at this moment, last 20 years actually, top 3 in the world, the industrial designers. And the rumor is he went to lunch and he was thinking what he will do, and he was eating squids and pouring lemon. And that's how this was created. This is a lemon squeezer. And it tells a story. When you see it, it immediately tells you the story. You need to grab it. When I see it, oh, there's a cat. There's a
That's
cat. It turns out
chaos.
to
Yes, that's the other one. Void. This one.
my
Void
girlfriend
chaos.
doesn't let me get the cat. I'm very jealous now because my girlfriend doesn't let me get the cat. But this tells the story. It answers also all the questions. So he designed something, and it's telling the story immediately. When you see it, it's telling some kind of story. You want to know what it is. And when I tell you it is a lemon squeezer, you're like, it always looked like a lemon squeezer, but I wasn't sure if it is. So for me, this is a perfect design, and there is something so special about it. He translated his soul into it. There is something so special about it. So yeah.
Do you use it as a to squeeze your?
Lemon?
No, I
Yeah.
don't use it. And my mother was very, very kind to put it in a washing machine and it lose the glossiness on it. And I don't allow her to come to my apartment anymore because it lost the glossiness. It doesn't have it anymore. It's like aluminum now completely. But it works very good. It works very, very good. I was surprised. It works very, very good when you start squeezing. The drops are perfect, and it cleans much easier than the normal juicer because nothing stays on it. Everything drops down. So it's a beautiful design.
Wow. I'll probably, I'll definitely want to put a link about that piece. If you could, after the podcast, definitely let me like some details of that so I can put it in the link for anyone who's interested.
No problem. No problem.
All right, awesome. And by the way, like I just have to mention something as well before moving to the next guest. I noticed that on the last podcast that I was recording that, whatever that's happening on my screen that, is getting recorded. So for anyone who's watching this on YouTube, which by the way, these podcasts are YouTube exclusive, there's no audio version of them. You've probably seen that, that I've tried to take screenshots multiple times. And yes, I take the thumbnails of each episode without any, like, warning beforehand. So yeah, you'll see the thumbnail what it is now, but for anyone who's watching, they probably saw the whole process of trying to get a perfect screenshot because some people were, their eyes were closed and I had to take it again. And yeah, so you've been witnessing the behind the scenes at the same time as well. So, good, congratulations. And well, up next, Emily. And by the way, could we get like a cat reveal again, like the chaos or void?
Well, they're out.
Oh, they're
Sorry,
out
they
and
just
whatever.
went through the window.
Because on last episode, Anna Moshak, brought her cat and she can't occupy the podcast for like 5-7 minutes. And yeah, that was good. That always brings, people to watch the episode. So, well,
Yeah, I've got
without
drama
further.
queen, attention grabbing cats. Yeah. So, well, to answer the question, so
Sure, I can
well,
repeat
it's
it.
yeah. If you could
Sure, sure.
repeat, please.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. No worries. So in recently, what's piece of media, like, whether it be video games, movies, series, books, whatever. I don't know. Do books considered like media? I don't know. I'm not really good with English or, literature,
I think
that
so.
stuff. Do they?
Yeah.
All right. We'll just pretend they are.
Yeah.
What recent piece of media has really captivated you in terms of storytelling and, design or anything in that regards, and also tell us, in your opinion, based on your experience as an artist, what made them really interesting to you, if
Okay.
you could break it down.
Yeah, sorry. Well, it's not gonna be recent because unfortunately I don't have time those last months to watch or consume anything really. So I'm gonna talk about a series I really do like, which is not new, but it's called Ozark, and it's on Netflix, and it's about a guy who gets dragged into drug traffic and it embarks his family with him. So a pretty simple pitch, to be honest, but the way it's narrated is just incredible throughout all the different seasons. It's quite slow. Usually, people don't like when things are slow, where there's no action, things happening, and blah blah blah. But to me, I think it's very important when you want to tell a big story with interesting character arcs that take time to present the character, to make the consumer, the people who are going to watch it, understand their psychology, their what they want, what they don't like, and what is their interaction with other characters. Because it's quite simple, to stereotype all of that, right? And usually it tends to get stereotyped when there's not enough time to sorry, I can't find the word. When they don't have time to narrate all of this, so it's very a slow story at the beginning, but at the beginning, I mean, I don't know if you've watched Seri.
No. Has anyone
No.
here watched Ozark?
A little bit.
Some episodes. I watched some episodes.
So at the beginning of every episode, there is there's the title, but there are also 4 pictures that are going to be the different chapters, I would say, during the episode. So 4 images that stay into your head, and you're just waiting for the moment to. I mean, they give you an idea somehow of what's going to happen, and then you discover what is it in the episode. And I think that's a very interesting way in asking the consumer to create the story in his head and to confront it to what's gonna actually happen in the episode. And well, I'm not gonna talk too long about it, but it's a really, really good story, mostly because um, I think people can easily recognize themselves in those characters because they are simple. They have humors like us. I would say they are not particularly stereotyped. I see Daniel smiling, so I don't know. Maybe you've got a completely different opinion on that.
No,
I'll
no,
be happy
no.
to hear
I'm
about
just
it.
you're
Um,
good.
but you know, when usually when you watch something on the TV, at some point you don't relate to the character. You're like, well, I'll never react like this. Well, that's, I mean, and you just think, well, that's a movie, you know, and you just leave it this way because, well, it's supposed to be entertaining. Where in Ozark, you don't feel like that. You understand there is a perfect logic behind the reactions of the characters, the way they interact, and that's brilliant. That's absolutely rare. So I really recommend watching this because the arc of the characters, their progression, um, makes sense, I would say.
All right, up next we have Alexander Rostov.
Indeed, some media that has a story that leaves a mark. I don't know. That doesn't happen very often. That Tetris game had a great story that happened from its mechanics. The one with the music by the crazy Japanese guys. What was it called? The Tetris Effect. Have you played it?
No.
No. Okay, Tetris. You know I forgot the melody. Anyways, the Tetris melody, the blocks come down, score goes up, it gets faster. That seems to be it. But then some crazy designers figured out that, wait, you can do more. That you can look at these parameters by which Tetris is designed and you can design levels around them. So in this game, what happens is each, after you clear, I don't know, 20 lines or 40 lines or whatever, you switch to the next level and everything has a different art style. The blocks are different and the backgrounds are different. And all of this is contextualized like some kind of a vaguely new age spiritual journey through like visions of like New York jazz clubs and camels in the desert and autumn rain in like Japanese drums are doing stuff in the background. Just cool different levels. But then in this structure, you can do design flourishes that tell little stories where here is like a level that's like Leonardo da Vinci construction stuff is happening. Everything is like mechanical joints and the music is, it was very chill before in the previous level. Suddenly it's like, oh my God, it picks up speed and the blocks are coming faster because in this level they come faster. And then after like some lines in, the music goes even faster. And oh my God, the blocks start coming even faster. And now you're a loser at Tetris. You're like, fuck, you're making mistakes. It's climbing up to your like line is constantly going higher where you're trying to fit it. And then, bam, you cross another threshold that the music gets even more intense. But the speed of the game gets slower. It pulled a little trick on you. You're still like, oh my God, trying to play it super fast, making mistakes that you don't have to because the music is super fast. But then you take a moment and you notice that, oh my God, it's actually slowed down. The music is just mega fast. So design structures that tell stories that make you have little stories that you can, I don't know, relate to your friends or something. Those are interesting. And that Tetris game had a very interesting sort of way that it weaved some kind of a narrative, a very like abstract and unrelated to characters or events or ideas even, but still a story structure goes through that entire game through these like design parameters. And I guess that was interesting.
Interesting.
Tetris with story.
Yeah, is that like a new Tetris movie or something?
No, a game. It's a video game. It's called Tetris Effect. It came out on the
Tetris Effect.
PlayStation something a while ago, and it's Chloe and musicy.
Hmm.
And it was like it completely reinvented Tetris for me, at least.
That's
I've always
interesting.
liked Tetris a little bit, but then this made me a real fan of Tetris.
I'll check it. I'll check that out as well. Tetris Effect. Huh.
Mm.
How about you, Thiago?
So that's something that it's been in my mind recently, right? Because I'm working on a VR project for a while, and I'm expanding this project, and really thinking, like, how can I make this a product? Like, how can I make this an experience for others and not just for me, right? Because so far it's been like my escape. Like, I go there and I do kind of like the stuff I feel like. But in the past few months, I started to research more about this, like read more. So it's storytelling is something that I'm not particularly amazing at. Like, as I said, that's why my answers before they were kind of vague. Like, a lot of times I go by instinct. But I can really recommend the stuff from the Disney Imagineers. Is the people that build the theme parks. And if you go on YouTube and you search for Disney Imagineer, they have a course. Like how the thought process, like how they build the parks, how they build a new area, like how they make choices for every detail. Every detail, like, for example, they have this example, they work on this area that it's like a pirate, I think it's like a pirate, like area. So, like, what kind of wood you would have there? You wouldn't have like a fine kind of wood. You would have like a rough wood, right? And then you start thinking about like the doorknob. It's like a lot what Daniel said before in his answer. And to go back to the answer to this question, like a piece of media that I consumed recently that really made an impact on me, it was an immersive experience in LA, which was built by some of these Imagineers. So it's called The Nest, and it was kind of like a escape room, but not so much about puzzles. It was very immersive. Like, so the story is some woman somewhere, and this experience is about her life. So they took this building in LA. There was a warehouse, like it's like a storage building that has several floors, and they had these cabinets. Like, if you watch any of these reality shows, like Storage Wars and stuff, kind of like that, but much older. So they have the whole building that they can build stuff. So the whole experience starts when you get there. Like, you go to this room, and and there was this like the host, like he was treating you as like, oh, you came here for the to go to her storage, right, to pick up her stuff or to look, like it's like a theater kind of thing. And he gives you some instructions and a flashlight, and they take you to the room and they leave you there. So you enter, and it's kind of like a little maze, not like a maze, but like you go through the areas, and everything is super cluttered. It's supposed to be her memories. So these are like elements from her life. And it was really cool because they got a lot of stuff from like vintage stores, from like secondhand store, like like objects that are very common that we all recognize. And you go through these paths, and you grab like an audio player, like a little portable one, like an old one, like the cassette tapes, right? So you find these tapes and you put them, and then you listen. And this was amazing show because they got really good actors, and you're overhearing parts of her life. So, for example, when she found her boyfriend that becomes a husband, like when she gets pregnant, like sometimes these recordings are very far away. It's kind of like you're overhearing from another room. It's not like they had a microphone there. It's more like, like, for example, the couple has an argument, and they recorded from like really far away, so it's kind of hard to hear, So you go through this paths, and you explore, like you open like the drawers, like the cabinets, and you find like pictures. There was this part where there's a lot of smells like tea, and then you make a turn, and it's like, oh, it's the entrance of a house. So like that was super unexpected, but the whole thing is, everything there, every single element had a purpose, like every single element there belonged to her life, like that stuff that she had at some point in her life. And the whole experience happens in your mind, like you connect to this character through the elements. And that was a great research for me, because I want to find a way to do this in the VR experience, because it's not gonna have much gameplay like puzzles or like shooting. I don't like that in VR. But if I can transmit this experience, like that would be a win. So if any of you like listening to this, you ever have a chance, I highly recommend this place. It's called The Nest, and it was totally worth it. My wife was very touched as well, and it was a kind of like an unforgettable experience. And it's not an escape room. There's some light puzzles, but very human story. Not something that's gonna traumatize you or like how humans are bad. It's like, no, here's a human life, and a life has ups and downs and challenges, and felt very relatable.
All right. And actually, about VR, I just had an idea. I think it's been done before in video games, but I'm not sure in VR. Probably in VR as well. But I think one thing that just came to my mind, and I just want to mention, is like, imagine like you use the cassette tapes in, for example, in the Spanish Town project that you're working on, but instead of like playing and the player is just looking around the environment and just listening. Imagine a new like sequence like arrives, and just and you see like the animations that are on, and I know it's a huge task. I know it's not like as easy. Oh, just add this and then that. No, I know, but I think it'll be a much more immersive idea to just show it like a sequence of animation instead of like
So you say like going to like a dream or like some other
kind of
place,
like
yeah,
kind of like that.
Yeah. No, that's something I've been thinking a lot too, and I'm sure there's a way to do it in a doable way, right? Because small projects will have limited resources, so yeah, I'm sure there's a way to do that kind of stuff, but maybe just audio, for example, right? Maybe there's no vision and you're just hearing, like voices, or or maybe it's just like a projected screen. There's a way to transmit that are not necessarily so explicit, and I think the best stuff is implicit a lot of times, right? It's you just give a hint, and then the user, they make whatever they want. I think that's a big trick to storytelling, right? Like it was mentioned before too, is like giving little hints, like leaving these breadcrumbs, like the Ozark idea. Like in the beginning they show some breadcrumbs, and and that gets you curious about it. So it's about choosing like what to expose and what to hide to, and what just hint, like keeping some things vague. I think it's an art, not a science. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, in general, mystery is like something that's like hard to balance, right? Like sometimes too much exposition kills it, not enough leaves people clueless, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So it's tricky, but yeah.
So how do you guys think that could be done? Is like through like testing, for example, like testing with different people and then calibrating?
I'm sorry, how do you mean? What do you mean? Sorry.
Like finding the right exposition, like when you have a mystery, like if it's not too much and not too little.
How to make a good mystery?
Yeah, I want to learn. I don't know.
I don't like the idea of testing on people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's something that they do in video games, like those focus test group. I think that's horrible. Personal opinion, maybe controversial, whatever.
They should only test hair products on humans.
But I mean, okay, what do I mean by that is everybody's gonna react different. The thing is that if you're trying to find a median among all those feedbacks, you just left with something bland.
Yeah,
so
very
in my
average.
opinion, so in my opinion, I mean, I think it's you said that, or maybe Darker. We, of course, we are aware of what we design, what we want people to feel, but it's gonna be up to them for sure. But still, I still think that the intention should stay original and from the creator instead of trying to sorry, I can't find the word in English. dissolving them in amongst people's feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's a balancing act. I think maybe it's a little bit useful, but if you do too much, of course, it's now gonna have average, and it kills the joy. Like have everyone, oh, it should be like this. I like this. I don't like that. And like you said, the kind of like the art gets lost in a way.
For
But,
me,
but
I
I'm
use-
not saying it's easier. Sorry.
No. Sorry, I interrupted. Sorry.
No. I was done.
Okay. I apologize if I interrupted. I
no.
use music a lot to get the balance between things in design. And what I mean by music, I will tell you one thing that I deciphered now when I'm 35, even though I look 25. Thank you, God. But I deciphered. It took me only 35 years to understand this. If you look when we were studying and at a young age, you always had kids that listened to only specific genre of music. Rappers at our time, there were rappers, metal. We had Serbian music, also turbo folk, which I
Emos.
listened that much to. But the thing was that mostly those kids that listened to only one genre of music were the least creative ones. Now, when you look back to it, because to be a designer or an artist, you need to open yourself to multiple experiences. And I use a lot music to balance things in a design or art. And what I mean by that, for example, if you listen to only one genre of music, the notes are pretty similar on most of the songs when they are accented. But if you listen to multiple genres, you have different songs which have different accents on them. So, for example, if we take some song and we have a very calm part of it, and then we have acceleration, which turns on the brain, the same feeling should be applied to a design or to a mystery. We have a mysterious part which is very flatter than the rest, and then we have stronger part. You can see that mostly in the 80s songs, which were the ones that touch the heart mostly. And because they were sang from the heart, the new songs are not sang from the heart because the huge corporations and everything, money spinning very fast. You don't have time to turn on your heart and to sing about love or something. You're singing about fast cars, about hookers and so on. And I'm not joking when I say that. We all know the music today. But from the 80s, if you listen to any song, there is that flat part and then there is an accent. Same feeling I apply to design or to mystery when I'm telling the story. Flat part, acceleration. Flat part, acceleration. That's how I do it.
Interesting. And one of the before I even proposed the subject of storytelling and design on this episode, I have prepared one specific, and I had one specific example in mind, and I just want to mention for anyone who's listening. And by the way, a spoiler warning for the game Machinarium. Yes, I want to talk about the game Machinarium. Who here has played that or seen the game? It's from
Which
2009.
one?
I saw, but I didn't play. But I know which game. Looks
Great
pretty
game.
cool.
Yeah,
Which
same
game?
as Thiago.
Yeah, I highly recommend everyone to go buy that game as soon as possible and play it. All right, if you're interested in art or video game design or any of the topics that we kind of mentioned today, right? The game does everything beautifully and masterfully, in my opinion. Like, from the first sequence of the game, you just see a landscape, like in a how do you say it? I forgot the name in English. Like it's like a place where they dump the garbage. I forgot. Yeah,
Landfill?
yeah, landfill, exactly. Thank you. So it's basically a landfill filled with metal parts and robots, broken robots and everything. And you see from the distance there's a city with a huge tower, like a tower at the top, which is overviewing everything. And you see a spaceship, like a vehicle shuttle thing, flying around from distance, getting closer to the camera view, and then gets in the 2D point of view of the game. And our main character, Joseph the robot, his name is actually Joseph, they dump Joseph all over the landfill, and all our parts are, disassembled. And we have to use different body parts to assemble ourselves at first with different puzzles and things that are available. And the game basically tells a story of, I'm not going to go to the story too much because, of course, some of you said, you might not have played it. So, because I actually want you guys to enjoy the story. But basically, the way as you progress towards the story, it's like so intriguing every sequence you go in and you get more informed. It basically like the show not tell thing that I mentioned. It does that perfectly, like really perfectly. And
It doesn't even use words.
yeah, it's just, robots talking. Exactly. And just puzzles and everything. Yeah, like, their gibberish language, which is gibberish to us, and they have their own written language and everything. And by the way, the art book, and I highly recommend buying it on Steam or whatever site you have, because you can also get the art book of the game, which is like insane. Like, it's like 9,500 pages of beautiful loose sketches of this whole world and concepts. And all right, this is turning into a huge sponsorship for this game, but I mean, it's fine. Um, but that game does this whole concept perfectly. It's really immersive, even though the mechanics is just point and click, and the puzzles are actually like, challenging, but not too challenging. Sometimes too challenging, if I'm being honest, or maybe I'm just too dumb. But that game, the music, the art, the gameplay mechanics tie together perfectly in its context, and it makes it a really immersive experience, even though the game is from 2009. And when you have this, like, a synchronicity of all these elements, I think it will result in a timeless piece. And that's what I wanted to segue into my next subject, which is what makes a timeless, form of media, in your opinion. Because to me, Machinarium, I'll still play it 50 years later. I can still enjoy it. Even people in 50 years later can enjoy it in 50 years. But for example, my favorite game of all time, which I've mentioned like 100 times during this whole 200 something episodes I've done, is Fallout New Vegas. Even though I love it, I wouldn't call it a timeless, video game, because of, this is my subjective opinion, of course, because of some gameplay issues, right? Which is, again, subjective for everyone. But even though I love that game, and I think this writing and just, the concepts of it is perfect, and I love it to death, but I wouldn't call it like a timeless piece. But this is my opinion. But I want to know the rest of you guys' opinion on, what makes a timeless piece, whether it be video game or movie. I'm not a huge movie or film critic, so I just gave my opinion on video games, right? So, wait, who was the last person who where should I start with? Right, we can start with
Okay,
Daniel. Oh,
Daniel.
Daniel, all right. Daniel, could you go ahead?
Or we can go from right to left too.
From
I
my
can do
point
that
of
too.
view, it's Daniel, Dharma, Emily, Alexander, me, Thiago. Yeah, that's how I just been saying. All right, we can start with Daniel.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think you you had a pretty good point that it's like more of the sum of the parts, right? It's like it's not just the sum, but it's also like, okay, all this together, what does that by itself do? I think that's more important than like, oh yeah, like the visuals are great, the audio is great, the gameplay is great. Like it's yeah, it has to have some sort of impact. Is like a accumulation of all that stuff. Um, Man, it is hard for me to. I think for me, I see things as timeless more as it does at least one thing, but in a very masterful way. Uh, because there's a lot of media, like you pointed out, like for example, New Vegas or any other media where I think by themselves they have something that is very very special that makes it hard to compete when it comes to that very specific thing. I think New Vegas's story and like side quests and everything are very special. Like it is hard to find. It is hard to find like a game that has side stories that are as like impactful and deep when it comes to just side characters that you're not really supposed to care for because they're just it's by chance type of thing that you come across them. Um, for me, the game that probably had the most impact that I always go back to, and I'm like, oh man, like there's still like that sense of like mystery and stuff was probably the first Deus Ex because at the time it really opened the door to like what you can do with games when you mix genres and you make some weird decisions to make it so that it's not just an FPS game. Yeah, you try to do something that's more than just like, oh, it's a FPS game with RPGs. Like, well, it's that, but it's also they did that because they want to make it so that you have multiple choices with the story. And it's like it has that impact where it feels like, oh man, it's not just a game. It's like it's trying to show you like you can make some cool media that is not like movies, not like music, not like books, where this is what games could be type of thing. So I think yeah, for that part, like I would say like that would be like a classic for me. But yeah, I think a lot of times I go back to some media where I'm like, oh man, like I'm sure it's aging, or doesn't look quite as good as today's productions or something, or the story's not quite good but the visuals are great. Like I think for me that's how I would see like a classic or something that's timeless, is that there is something very specific that is hard to redo whatever the time in the future. It is hard to like I don't think we'll ever have like a Star Trek Next Generation show again. Like something very specific about, you know, a group of people in a ship and they come across some weird aliens on like in the future. Like it, sure we can try to do it again, but I think they had just the right recipe for the writing specifically for that show that is hard to replicate today or any other time. Like I think it was just at the right time they wrote the perfect stories. It's the same with music too. Like sometimes I would enjoy music where the production is really bad, but the compositions and the writing of the melodies are really good, and I can kind of glance over the electronic saxophone that is like ear piercing, but it actually plays a really nice melody. Yeah, I think that's how I view it more. But again, like art, like anything, it's really up to interpretation for everyone. So I think I'm curious to hear what people's thoughts. I'll be quiet.
Sure. And I mean, those were some good points. But when I mentioned that Fallout New Vegas is, I wouldn't call that timeless. What I mean by that is, for example, right now, if I take a 7-year-old, right, from this generation, and I put in front of him or her, like, Machinarium, they can probably figure out the mechanics and the game and how fast they can get immersed in that game. Much faster than, the outdated, UI UX of Fallout New Vegas compared to today's standards, right? Because there are games like even from like 40 years ago that still, I think are timeless, like the a lot of Sega games or even Nintendo or those old games, console games from before, like Sonic 1. If I give it to my 4-year-old cousin, he can figure it out pretty easily, right? But of course, maybe my comparison is really bad because I'm comparing like a very like 2D platformer to like an FPS, like role-playing RPG, maybe. But you get my point about like a piece being timeless. I'm not necessarily like comparing them too directly. And yeah, so up next, Dharma.
What makes it something timeless? I don't know if we will ever know or we can decipher it. I really try to decipher multiple times how to make something timeless. I can't talk about the craft because craft comes in many ways and shapes. I haven't deciphered that. But one thing that is common in most of the things when they created something that is so powerful and meaning to the world is when somebody invested their soul into that. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of sweat, and believing in that project. You can see that with Apple, you can see that with Samsung, you can see that with Star Wars. And all of those people had to overcome some of their miseries through that project. And I'm not talking about miseries of the project. They come with the project. I'm talking about their life circumstances like that. If you read any of their book. Today, everything is a mega corporation. Everything is super fast. You don't have time to explore things. You're just moving fast, making money, and that's it. And I don't think that you have the time to touch your soul to see what you want to do with your life. Like the economy is hectic. Also, I'm defending now people why it's like that. But the economy is crazy. It's much harder to earn the money, to earn good living, and so on. It's the world has changed definitely. The most timeless pieces, if you look, were in the era when the technology was evolving. And it was 90s, 2000s, 80s, 70s. Technology was evolving. Plus, they were investing a lot of them in that project. One way not to make a timeless piece is to have unlimited budget. I can tell you that. Unlimited budget definitely kills timeless pieces. I have seen that from the architects. Serbian architects were very known in Saudi Arabia when it was growing like crazy because of the oil and everything. And they would give them budgets, and the sheikhs would come and they would say, make me whatever you want. Here is the money. You have 5 million. Do whatever you want with my house. Build that room. They would always make shit. And they would openly speak about it, that when somebody gives you budget and there is no restrictions, it's super hard to invest into something and to create it. It's very hard. Restrictions for timeless projects are needed. They are needed.
Mm.
Philip Stark,
Can I? Can I ask? Architecture is very interesting, and I've been to Belgrade many times, and I very much love there. And I love the Novi Belgrade architecture there. I love walking around there, the brutalist dreamscape of what Tito socialism was supposed to be all about. Today they are like the pyramids, beautiful ruins, visions, hallucinations from a different time.
Pyramids, please.
Sorry?
Don't compare this to pyramids, please. Pyramids are a wonder, please.
Well, I think they're also a wonder. But I mean, do you disagree that those are not like amazing buildings and amazing constructions? How are they different? Are they? To me, those are like timeless examples of like architecture, like trying to build something. I don't know how deeply to go into Serbian architecture here.
Yes, you see how interesting it is. For you, they are amazing. For us, we are like, this is horrible. I mean, they when you look them as with a foreign eye, USA people, when they come and they see them, they're like, wow, this is so incredible. And for us, we are like, this is a piece of concrete. I don't like it. I want to go to USA and see something much better than this. I grew up in a famous building. My grandparents were in that building. It was made by French architect. 71, and it was also pronounced as the ugliest building in the world in 2014, I think, something like that. But he was specifically, that French architect came and he was supposed to make something great, and Tito told him, no, we will do it like this. And he created, so technically he's signing a building that because of Tito. I'm not saying it's not beautiful. We are just used to it because it's everywhere around us, Genex and so on. I'm happy when I hear this, but I'm always pleasantly surprised that somebody likes so much that buildings,
Should I defend Serbian architecture more?
No, please do.
All right. Is there anyone wants to add anything to the Serbian architecture subject before we move on to the next one?
Please, let's move to something better. I'm joking, of course. I
No,
like this.
no, that's very interesting. I've never been to Serbia, so well, I definitely want to see that from my eyes and have an opinion about it because it sounds like it's quite a big deal.
You're all invited to be my guests whenever you want. I already took many people, and I tell you, especially Los Angeles people, when they come and see architecture, they're like, wow, this is like cyberpunk. And I'm like, it's a concrete building. It's for me, I've been walking and I want to see Eiffel Tower. I want to see Rome. I want to see stuff like that. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean that's funny because a couple of months ago, a friend came to Paris. So I went to Paris to show him around, I would say, but he showed me around. Mostly because I've been living in Paris for a few years in the past, and definitely we do have amazing buildings, amazing architecture, but just like you, I mean, it doesn't feel amazing when you live in this city. You don't even look at them, and it's like, wow, look at that, that's incredible, blah 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 blah. And I mean, he's Dutch, and I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I couldn't even appreciate the beauty of it. It's definitely amazing, but yeah, it's I guess it's a common feeling for people, well, living in
It's hard to see the magic in the thing that you see all the time.
exactly. Thank you. You're saying it much better than me.
Absolutely, I agree completely on that.
And also there is the difference factor. When that's something you don't have near you. I mean, that is completely different from what you have around you. There's there's more just as it's easier to find it beautiful when that's something that you're not used to. Well, in my opinion, right? Compared to when that's something usual.
I think
Yes,
we are
absolutely.
going in direction with this. Sorry for interrupting. I think we are going because we are talking about storytelling now. As Alexander said, and Emily, when you don't have connection to it and you don't know the backstories like political, economical, and so on, and when you look at it, for you it's just a building. For me, Eiffel Tower is just the Eiffel Tower. But if I was French and I was living there, I would connect many things to it, a whole narrative to it, and it would completely change probably the feeling and everything. So yeah.
The buildings that we build into our cities are also a very interesting narrative mark that the history of the place, the history of the people who have been in charge, and what sorts of
values.
values and what kind of society built these things. In older towns, you will see like many layers of this. Here in Tallinn, we have the ancient old town that people like very much. It's these gingerbread houses that were built by the German merchants of the what was their league? They had a big organ, Hansa, the Hanseatic League. They built the Baltic Seas full of them. That's the European medieval town, and you can see that the merchants built little merchants' houses for themselves. For instance, the Soviet Union, of course, Estonia was part of that. And in different parts of towns, you get the Kommi blocks, the project number 5 designed in the central bureau, and now the city planners are placing this. And these parts of town have been designed by urban planners so that this house, these like social housings are in range of, each of them has a kindergarten and an apothecary, pharmacy, and everything is in around a different way to build. And today, when the capitalists are in charge and they're building giant glass towers that need to be taller than the churches that the ancient merchants built, because the capitalists are even more wealthy than the merchants were. Anyway, so these are like different ways that houses, parts of town, are designed by different people in different times. And if they remain there as the city develops, they become these little stories.
Pockets of history.
Yes, and they form like this greater story of the city.
Yeah.
The narrative structure of the city.
There is whole narrative in them, right?
Yeah, it's the exact same stuff that the video game designer does it when he puts the tape around the gun barrel, but it happens across history.
Interesting. Also, on the same note, like one of the craziest, examples I could tell is also my hometown, Shiraz, in Iran. I don't know I think Tiago mentioned that he did some, samples for one of the maps on Overwatch from like a mosque in Shiraz, right?
Oh yeah, the one with the
Pink
stained glass, right? Yeah.
And
but I couldn't reproduce it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like sacred geometry, like it's very hidden knowledge. It's not just look at a reference and making it.
Oh yeah.
They're using like formulas, mathematics, that it's all hidden knowledge that it's hard to find today.
Yeah.
Gotta learn from masters and stuff.
Yeah, but I don't know if any other guests are familiar with the city, but I'm just gonna give a quick, explanation. Basically, in the 30-kilometer vicinity of that city, we have like historical sites, excavation sites from 3,000-year-old cities and mega structures, like Persepolis, one of them. And we have every time frame of Iran's history in this city, historical places from. And Iran had I'm not sure. I mean, someone's gonna quote me on that. Like a lot of different dynasties have ruled over this area, like a lot. And there's Zandia complex, which is really famous. There's Pahlavi structures. Actually, during Pahlavi times, which was the previous government, which unfortunately got overthrown. I don't want to get too political, but we'll move past this. It had a lot of brutalistic architecture, actually, by a lot of American engineers. Like, for example, the building of the University of Shiraz is like a huge, brutalist, really cool. I don't know if you just Google it, you'll see the landscape of it. It's just an amazing brutalist architecture, building. And it has as you walk through the city, even in the city center, you see all of this, all of these changes. And it's and for me that I've lived there for 21 years, it was very normal. But now that I'm kind of away from it for 5 years now, I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to get back to some places that I haven't visited. So it's kind of like the same thing you all just mentioned, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know, like it's kind of weird feeling. Yeah, like the same thing in Istanbul. Like there's a lot of mosques and places I haven't seen, but because I've seen so many mosques all around, I'm like, who cares? Like I definitely can every weekend go to somewhere new, and the city's huge. But yeah, you really don't appreciate things that are available to you until you're away from them. They lose their mystery or something. As we just mentioned.
Yes, one must leave the hometown and then come back.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Let the
And
roots call them back.
that's like a complex subject for me because I really can't go back. But yeah, we can skip past this part for now. All right, Emily, it was, I think, your turn to talk about, what makes a timeless piece, in your opinion.
Well, like someone tell me, I'd like to get the secret recipe, to be honest. I don't know, but I mean, Daniel and Darko mentioned some good points. I mean, and I think you as well. I mean, there's never be the end. Well, it's quite rare to have the entire piece. It's gonna be which is gonna be timeless. It's usually gonna be some part of it. And usually, I think it's also just like you said, because it connects emotionally, and it's well, I would say that it's going to be different for everyone. Something timeless for me is not necessarily going to be timeless for you, but there's still some pieces that are timeless for the entire world, obviously. It's a super difficult question. I won't be presumptuous and be able to be able to answer this question, to be honest. If I had an idea on how to decrypt this, well, I guess I would have only timeless pieces in my portfolio. So, well, that's not the case until now. So yeah.
All right, up next, Alexander.
How to timelessness.
Yep.
Very easy, very easy. Easiest thing in the world. You must simply make it so that the work of art that you make, it addresses the things in the in mankind, in the human condition that are timeless, that are not of this moment. The timeless things, they come with us and they never leave us. But then throughout history, man in the big poetic sense of all the genders, mankind picks up random gibberish that they are obsessed with for the next 20, 40, 60, I don't know, maybe a couple of centuries or something. Then they move on and they find new things to be obsessed over, and that really colors the centuries and the decades. But underneath all of that, there will forever be the things that all humans, from the darkest stone ages until future post-humanist spacefaring USB stick humans, brain on a USB stick humans, will always sort of care about and will matter to us and will speak to us. I'm not going to attempt to list them, but love or whatever.
Interesting.
There's certain things that are forever with us that make up what we do and what really matters to us. You just gotta address that in your art and the thing you do. That's of course how well. It's easy to say that. How easy it is to do that is of course another matter.
Exactly. And by the way, like Daniel, you spoke about Deus Ex, right?
Mhm.
It's a shame because actually Laura Gallagher worked on that project. I think Deus Ex Human, I think the sequel, or I think the original one hasn't, but I'm sure she worked on the sequel. And
Mhm.
yeah, God, I wish she was in this episode as well right now because she could have said a lot of interesting stuff about that as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, maybe next episode. But
Yeah.
up next we have Tiago.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. One that I like to wonder about. And I think the definition of timeless, right, is something that's outside of the present time. in a way. So I would like to mention there's a French philosopher called Jean Baudrillard. I don't know if I butcher his name, it's really hard for me to say. But he wrote like several books on like what's reality, like one of the most famous ones is called Simulation and Simulacra, or the vice versa, which was the book that inspired the Matrix movies mostly. And he actually really disliked the movie because he thought that they didn't understand his metaphor. And there is a very important distinction, like what is a simulation, what is a simulacra, right? So if we imagine like people in the Middle Ages, medieval times, they were living in reality in the sense that, like they were very close to nature, right? Like they had to get their food, like they didn't have mental, like besides religion, like it's not like today that we live in a world where we have all this media that is all like mind creations, right? They were more close to family, to like that kind of stuff. So it was very clear for them to know what a simulation was, because it was very different than what a reality was, right? So if they watch a theater, like they know that simulation. But over time, the simulation got so close to the real that we don't know what a simulation is anymore. Like we live inside the simulation and we don't know. So what is and then the other part is the simulacra, which is a copy of a copy of a copy without an original. And I think that's the state of we got to culture now. Like if you watch like a Marvel movie, for example, I haven't watched those in years. Like I really don't care about those movies. Like I mean, like I understand why people like them, and it's like cool that people like them. If they're happy, they're happy. For me, they don't speak to me because, for example, if I watch one of the new Marvel movies now, they're gonna start referencing other movies. They're gonna start referencing series, and stuff that like I'm not familiar about. So if you don't have those connections, like you can't connect to the movie, right? But like Alexander said, there are some universal truths, right? Like love, death, family, suffering, like some universal truths that if we can find a way to take those universal truths and express them in a way that's current, that people from our time will understand, I think that's maybe how to make a timeless piece today. But it's not looking at what others are doing. It's more like understanding like what they're doing, why they're doing that way, but finding these universal truths and executing them in a way that's not alien, that it's not like that feels like inviting and familiar, and right, but that's surprising the viewer with something that they already had. So that's why I have a really hard time connecting to like Darmar said very well, like how like all this very like capitalist mindset of like, oh, we just need more content, like Game Pass on Xbox. I cancel that because it's like I don't have time to play those games, and then every week there's more games, and you get stuck in this cycle where it's like the paralysis by analysis. It's better to just buy one game and really play the game than having all these options and just play for 10 minutes, play for 20 minutes just to see the art and stuff. And it's very sad that there is this convergence, towards this mindset that like, oh, just make more content, and I think that will blow up on their face at some point, like people will go back to like, I want more custom stuff, I want more artistic expression. So I'm a optimist in the sense that we are gonna pass through these dark ages of culture. Right, like Darmar said too, I think like if you go back to music in the 2000s, 90s, 80s, right, like after 2000, every music sounds the same. It's like culture stopped in a way. And I think it's up to us to revive it, like and take some risks and try to make something new.
That's very well observed. The source of art indeed needs to be life, not other art,
Exactly.
endlessly regurgitated.
And now with the art station, it's a very common thing, right? Like for new artists, like that they're starting right now, they go to art station and they see all that crazy art, and they're like, "Oh, I need to make that crazy art too." But
Yes, the world needs more space stations and cyberpunk babes.
well, if you make them, but make them in Serbia or like like make your own way, right? Like in, I don't know, cyberpunk Rome, or like find some new stuff, right? To not don't feed the simulacra, right? Like find a way to.
Yes, very well observed. You also mentioned that it's the dark age. I very much love that idea, because I also have this idea in my head that it's the golden age. It's the golden age of digital art. Look how much of there is. ArtStation is like the fucking Paris. Can I say that word? I'm sorry, I swore. I'm a
not
very
sponsored
polite
by
boy.
Powers. Go ahead.
Very good. ArtStation. It's like the very nice Paris Salon happening, but like 19th century.
But not really.
But like 24/7 and also much slower. Like with so much like whiz bang, but like yes, there's so much of this stuff coming out, and the tools are so good. The Photoshops and the blenders, and oh my god, the ZBrush, all of the things to make these arts, the Unreal engines to render images, to make art of such splendor and quality with such speed has never been before possible.
That's very interesting, because I remember something very interesting. Like I went to design school, I didn't finish, but there was my favorite teacher was the art history teacher. She was like true art. She was a sculptor, had a workshop and stuff, and I reconnected her a few years ago, and she asked for my portfolio, and I sent ArtStation. And she made a very interesting comment. So she went to the front page of ArtStation, and she said something like, like when I look at this art, I can tell that the art is a result of the tool they're using. Like she meant like the art, the tool shapes the art, like not the other way. Like people are learning to make stuff in a specific way, so that shapes how like everything looks. And is the thing with substance, right? Like if you want to make a stylized substance, you find some tutorial, and then everyone is kind of making the same with the same formula stuff. You end up getting the same results. So that was an interesting observation she made. That I was like, oh, okay, I see what I mean now.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate to the previous point, that I do think that it is kind of a golden age now, because you have so many people involved and interested in art and entertainment in general, and even just the more art part of it, that I think now it's easier to find your own pocket of people that are like-minded. Whereas before, everyone, like, if you wanted to play a fighting game like 20 years ago, you had to play Street Fighter, right? Like that was basically one of the only choices you had. You had to have a Super Nintendo or any other console at the time. And I think now, like the blessing in disguise of all this like democratization, I guess, of tools and platforms is that you can make your own stuff, and you can find your own crowd of people that are interested in the same things, and you don't have to go through that like funneling of either whoever's like gatekeeping like published things or whatever. Like it's I think hopefully in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, I hope that we'll have more than one Steam, more than one I don't know, of the 3 main console makers. Like we'll have even more platforms so that people can make more of a living in what they do, and they'll have like like I think I tend to be more interested in like the Dark Souls part of the culture of video games, as opposed to like the Call of Duty or Fortnite, which is very people pleasing, right? And one has found its crowd, and it's catering to its crowd. And I think maybe that is like the light at the end of the tunnel of like this, I don't know, like overcrowding of the whole art scene, is that maybe eventually people will be like, okay, I'm done with playing the new DLC or the new Battle Pass. I don't need this. I just need this one
Yeah.
group of like 5 or 10 game makers that make specific games that I really love, and you can maybe feed in that bubble and hope. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what I'm hoping, is that now everyone is like overwhelmed because there's so many choices, and
Mhm.
we end up having the common denominator things being made because it's like people trying to survive. But eventually we're like, okay, things are easing off, people figured out you can do whatever you want, so now it's all in your hands, and you should do what you want instead of trying to please people. Because
Yeah.
yeah, there's like the 50,000 people that play every Tetris game or new iterations of Tetris. There's the crowd of people that play every Animal Crossing games. You know, it's like
Mhm.
so. I'm hoping that that's the end road with all this like free tools,
Yeah.
free publishing on platforms, is that we get to that. It's
Yeah. No, I love that. It's like finding the little communities and really giving what they want, right? Like getting that connection.
yeah, hopefully.
I'll be right back.
Sure, no worries. And
Yeah.
Emily, we wanted to say something.
No, I just wanted to say that, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting discussion, and I mean, both points are very valid. Yeah, the only thing that kills me is um, this consumerism that you were all talking about. I mean, a few years ago, I I learned that people were watching series with a how do you call that? Speeding the time of it, for multiple by 2 or 3.
Mhm.
And I was like, what? I mean, why would you watch a series, an episode, um, uh, with a faster speed? What's the point? Just to be able to consume more in the same amount of time? Well, that's horrible, because people have worked on this series and put things at a certain time and had a rhythm to explain things, to show things on the screen, and you're just destroying that just because you want to consume more in the same amount of time. That's horrible. How do you create for those people, because they're not even able to appreciate the original piece that you gave them. Yeah, that's, I mean, among all of the things that have been said, like yeah, the tool and the accessibility and everything, but also the good side, yeah, the way that people can find their own communities and blah blah. Everything is cool in that, and I mean, yeah, both points about it. It's just this. This is horrible. How do you fight this FOMO feeling, fear of missing out, and so just consuming without even being able to appreciate what's being done?
Mm.
You
Yeah.
simply must make it so good that no one wants to watch it at several times the speed. But it's very well observed, yes, that the splendor of art has alienated it from us. There's so many video games, I don't know what to play anymore. I only play video games made in 1998 because I know what they are.
Oh yeah, actually, speaking of that, there's this like a Sega emulator on Steam. It's kind of interesting concept. Like when you first you have to buy the software, then after that, and it's also published by Sega, and you can also buy like Sega games from like 80s and 90s. And when you buy them and you go to this emulator, there's like a 3D 80s room environment, and the games get added to your shelf. So yeah, I mean, I understand your like kind of like what you're going through, like Alexander, because I'm also like playing like games from 1989, Sega games I used to play as a kid, and they're still, as I mentioned, I don't know, maybe it's nostalgia or whatever, but they're timeless. I can still enjoy them, like Fatal Labyrinth, like Streets of Rage, like Sonic games, the original ones, and and they're so basic but still really, I don't know, just fun. I don't know. I think it's a nostalgia thing, to be honest. At this point, I'm not sure. Uh, but what about you guys?
Well, how many of you are actually impacted by nostalgia?
Me.
I am a lot.
Everyone.
I'm a lot.
Yeah, that's
Really,
yeah, that's something I'm
Yeah. One likes to wallow in it sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Especially as you get older, you want to look at the things in your youth that made you happy.
There is always.
Okay.
Sorry, Emily.
No, please go on. Sorry. I'm French, so I'm used to cut people out when they speak. So sorry, just go ahead.
The thing about the youth and the nostalgia, it's very fascinating to me. I'm sorry if I always bounce to my country, but I have great explanations when it because I experienced it. Yugoslavia, like SSRR, and you have now people that are 60s because we fall apart as a Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, and so on, and we fell apart as a country. There was a war and everything. And if you ask the older generations that are 60 now, that happened in 30 years ago, if you ask them that, they always say that they think that they lived better in Yugoslavia. But the recent statistics are showing that they didn't live better in Yugoslavia. However, nostalgia of being young gives you that feeling. I mean, I'm not judging them. Maybe they lived, but the new things are like they are missing their youth. They are old now. And the nostalgia about youth is the same with everything. I'm maybe 35, but I vibrantly remember some of the things when I was 18, when I was 25. My bones didn't hurt like they hurt now, and so on. And there is a certain nostalgia about that.
I'm nostalgic to the video games that I played when I was like, I don't know, 16, 17, and thoughts were happening in my brain, and some of those video games felt big and meaningful to me at that time. But I'm not very nostalgic towards 90s cowboy capitalism when they were shooting businessmen dead on the street to make more money from other businessmen. And so there's like, what do you take into this nostalgia box of yours? But the things that really like moved me, I don't know, this is like another topic, but maybe it's interesting. Have you noticed this thing? When I was young and I played the games, and the games that impressed me, they were always games that felt to me that they were made for an older person. And today when I play the games, none of them impress me because it always feels like they're made for a younger person. Have you noticed this happening to you?
I think yes. I think also it's mostly because they try to play it more safer to appeal to investors. I think. I'm not sure. That could be one reason.
I think we're just getting old.
But why isn't anyone making games for old people?
That's true.
World of Tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, nostalgia is something I have a difficulty to understand. I won't say I mean, I did appreciate some things, some stuff in the past, obviously, but I think I'm mostly talking about people who say this very common phrase. Well, that was definitely better before. I wish I could go back to this time. That was great. That I don't really get it. That's definitely not me being judgmental, okay? But I find it interesting that people do, I mean, would love sometimes to just go back to a certain time box of their life. How, yeah, how now is not better with everything that you've experienced through through your life until now. That's something I definitely have a hard time understanding. I don't know, contradict me.
No,
Now is the best moment in time, always. The previous stuff, the nostalgia, it's all rubbish.
Yes. I think it's also just a state of mind because when you're a kid, you absorb everything, right? Like you feel like everything is a mystery because you don't understand anything. So I think it's easier to have an embellished idea of things, and if you hang on to that without having much of a critical eye when you look back, it's easier to nurture that vision and to think when you're older that, oh man, that thing was perfect. And it's like, well, it's not perfect. You just didn't understand most of it. And you had a very, very curious and open mind. More curious back then. And that's why some people feel like they wallow in nostalgia because they don't have that much of a child's mind, I'd say, when it comes to newer things as they're older. And I think that's in general just staying curious, I think, is like an important thing to not feel like you're old. You know, it's like trying to look at like a small indie game or small indie movie and not think about, oh, it's just a small team of developers that are trying to make money, but actually try to experience the game. I think, or anything really, like whatever when you walk around down the street and you see a building with a different light setting, and then you're like, oh man, I never saw this building this way. You know, I think stuff like this is like trying to have more of a kid's eye around things, and I think that's a good way, in my opinion, to like fight that whole back in my day things are better. Yeah, no, it's you're just
Good point.
You know, when somebody gets older and then they say, these kids, and it's funny when you find out how they were when they were young. You know, I know a guy here. He used to be in jail as a kid in juvie and so on and so on. But we didn't know that. But he gives himself permission to tell these kids they're obnoxious. They are doing too many bad things. And the kids are playing football in front of his window, but they are obnoxious, you know. And then you will find out about him what he did. You're like, okay, this doesn't get there. I think that the thing about that nostalgia is it is important. However, it's very important to come with an open heart to things. And the older you get, it gets harder and harder to have an open heart because the discussions. Let's go a little bit in sociology. I apologize if I'm going too much, but the discussions when you're in your 30s, they dramatically change. They are not anymore discussions coming from the heart. There is always somebody wanting something from you. Give me this, give me that, and people get closed and more. And it gets harder in any sphere to be open-hearted because when you are younger, it's different. You know, it's different. You are more naive. People are more naive around you. It's not everything is calculated. It's the same with video games. It's the same with video games and the movies. And I really dislike when older people come and there is a great movie. The new one comes out and it's great. But because of their nostalgia, they can't decipher that this is a great movie because it goes a little bit outside of the box than the older one was. And for example, great example about that, God forbid me for telling this because I will be attacked, but great example about this is Lord of the Rings. And why am I telling Lord of the Rings? Because it's in reverse. The old Lord of the Rings was amazing. The new ones that came out, I must say, it was horrible. It was horrible. But why am I saying that? Because the new generation is obsessed with the new Lord of the Rings. But if you watch the old one, I must say it's one of the rare movies that's still holding up, like Star Wars and some other movies. So
Timeless.
it's timeless. There is something. I can't believe that those effects were done in 2000s. You know, I'm like, what the hell is this? However, the new generation is obsessed with the new one because they are still young and it's a new experience to them, but they did still see the old one. However, there are certain movies that are not good as the old ones, but the old generation is pushing them forward. James Bond movies until 2005 are the great example for that. You know, when you watch it, you're like, I don't remember it was so slow motion and everything was so falling apart in this movie when I was younger and so on. So yeah.
That's interesting. About one thing that Daniel mentioned, he said, when we were kids, of course, we were more naive. We had like didn't have a lot of reference points, and that's why things seemed magical. And I think that's kind of my point as well in a sense, because when you're young, you're consuming like some cliches and tropes for the first time, so you don't really have a reference point to compare to, say, oh, this one is bad or this one is good, right? But for me, like for example, if I was 7-year-old 7 years old and I watched like the Avengers movies, like the one in 2008, 2019, I would be like, that's so cool. They're from another multiple like parallel universe. But now when every time, like right now, the past couple of years, I don't know what happened to me. Everything now, when writers run out of ideas, boom, reset the timeline, parallel universe. Like I hate that shit so much. Like why can't like the original characters that died, let them die and try to come up with new ones? What's wrong with that? I don't get it. It's like companies, they cut lightning in a bottle and they just try to desperately and pathetically repeat that again, and it just comes off so weird. I don't know, like how to describe it. And like I don't know, like does anyone have anything to add on to that, honestly?
There's an interesting parallel there. People kind of mention with these, especially all of the characters of the comic book verse, that they're like modern myths, that they're the American myths. All the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, they had to tell each other stories about. I'm remembering the Scandinavian guys. Who are the Greek guys? Aphrodite and all the stories had to be about those guys. But now every single story, we can't come up with any new characters. They all need to be about those Marvel guys. And like there's this. I don't know. We have gravitated towards using stock characters, stock archetypes and stuff throughout history, I guess, in different periods. The Enlightenment era French guys always made theater plays, and they always also had like, I don't know, some guy who wore a funny hat, and there was like a name for this archetype who always like showed up. And I don't know, for 100 years, if you were writing stories in France, you had to include those guys in your story. So I guess it's something that we are, through various mechanisms, always coming back to writing stories like this. It is absolutely dull, though. You get so bored of it after a while.
Mm-hmm. Isn't there like a pretty big book by like some dude called Bruce Campbell or something about the hero?
Oh, Joseph Campbell.
Joseph Campbell, not Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
Is that the
Very good
monolith?
stuff. It's like the hero with 1,000 faces.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same story told over and over and over, but because it's universal.
Not only is the same characters, it's also the same bloody story.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something. It is hard to not feel for a redemption story. I think a vengeance story, redemption story. Like there's always, like like we talked about earlier about the like universal truth stuff that no matter what, it's always going to resonate with people. And I think just because it's like stories that we all live through every day, right? Like you lose a job or something, you get rejected for some other reason or something. Like there's always just the life tribulations that you can kind of symbolize with something with the storytelling that I think they're hard to not tell because they're good references for people, I think, to really.
Mm.
It feels like the problem is when this is used in a cynical way, right? Like nostalgia, feelings for the past and stuff. Those are good feelings to have, right? But the problem is when it's used in a cynical way, like, oh, it's because it's working out, so let's make every movie looks like the 80s, and let's make people feel like, like they're in the 80s, and I think that's kind of like the wrong approach. I think it's more like understanding why those things connected to us at that time, and how can we make something today that has that spirit maybe, but doesn't necessarily have, like the same aesthetics, it's not just trying to recreate something that can't be recreated. Because those moments felt good because we were in the present, right? And if we're like, oh no, it was better. Yeah, it was better because now you don't have this mind anymore that you had before, right? It can be just as good today if you open up your mind and your heart. But I think sadly the masses are being used in a way, right? Like their nostalgia is being used. Like they grew up, they have a emptiness in their mind, in their heart, in their lives, and these big corporations are trying to fill this emptiness with like, oh, remember when you were a kid and things were so good, but they don't really get why those things were good back then, right? They have a very superficial level. It's like the best example is the Jurassic Park movies. Like watch the first one. It's like it will always be scary for any kids. Those dinosaurs like are freaking scary, right? Even the second one when the dinosaur is walking the window and like as a kid I was like, oh my god, like what if there's a dinosaur outside, right? But then you watch the new one, it's like it's dinosaurs running and like what's the point, and just like a mishmash. It doesn't really talk to it, but they use this nostalgia as a bait. Like, oh, it's gonna feel like the old one. It's same with the Planet of the Apes. A lot of these soft reboots they've been doing now is like instead of just okay, write a new story, they kind of write the old story, but they change. Like it's a Star Wars show can handle like this new stuff. Like it's double-edged sword.
I don't know. Like, I'm just gonna say something that a lot of people might attack me for, but I mean, I know it's a subjective thing, but when I was a kid, I used to, of course, play Star Wars games, right? Especially the Rogue Squadron, the one which was, fighting with airships, kind of like that. That was really fun. I liked the art, I liked the robots, I liked the designs as a kid. I loved robots, especially like the R2D2 and the little cute stuff they made. But that's all I like. But I I never got the hype around the Star Wars. That's my hot take, actually.
Yeah,
Because
I never got into it.
because it's just bad guys, good guys. The bad guy gets stronger, the good guy gets weaker, then the good guy trains and beats the bad guy, and it's with lightsabers. That's it. I don't know. A lot of people will hate me, but yeah, I never got it. Why do you guys think it's? I mean, of course, for its time, when it first came out, of course, it was a huge deal, obviously. But I don't know. Like I never connected with it.
I think it's a great example of what we talked earlier about. Like they took these universal themes, and they created like a new thing. At the time, it was new, right? That spoke to that generation. But at the root is all the old stories. It's the same stories that the ancients were talking around the bonfire. Like they would sit around the fire and then tell the stories. Like Star Wars, the same, but they just put this the sci-fi costume and stuff.
spin, yeah. Like that's really interesting to me. But so here's the thing. Now I want to know everyone's hot takes that people might get mad at them for. Which popular thing do you guys hate? Come on, let's hear it.
Marvel.
Right, in
Which
defense of Marvel,
Pokemon?
ooh, Pokemon too. That's
No, sorry. No, sorry. I didn't hear the question. Sorry. I heard which Pokemon
No,
don't
no.
you like?
No.
Okay, right. Sorry.
We can go with that as
How
well.
how can you not like a Pokemon?
Well, the new ones are horrible. But
Yeah, like that's an interesting topic to talk about as well. But I wanted to say something, I forgot it. But all right, so let me just go back to the question. Basically, I want to ask you for your hot takes, right? Which popular franchise do you guys kind of don't get it that most people love? And by the way, I just remembered what I wanted to say, Tiago. In defense of Marvel, I think the only good thing that came out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's safe for me. That's one of my favorites. But the rest, boring. But so
Okay.
Daniel, what is your hot take in this situation?
I really don't know. Because again, I'm not much of a fan. Like I'm not really following anything. Yeah, probably anything superhero. I tend to be a bit turned off because it's already cutting off the very naturalistic stories that I like. Like I love depressing movies and things where it's happening down the street, something tragic, and no one's paying attention because it's weird, whatever. But that's more of what I like, so I naturally don't really pay attention. But yeah, I would say superhero stuff. I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm good. If everyone was inviting me to hey, let's hang out, watch a movie, I'm like, I'll stay home. I'll play Tetris. But
what
yeah.
about the Joker movie?
That was a good one.
I know. I heard that it had good like
Depressing
social
stuff, yes.
commentary. Yeah.
No, it's
But
perfect.
yeah, I would say that probably would be the one that would be tempting to watch, but I feel like I've probably seen a movie in the past that says the same social commentary,
Taxi Driver.
and yes, yeah, that's another big one where it's like, yeah, like I've seen Taxi Driver. Like if there's another movie about someone becoming extremely like like isolated, it's like, yeah. So I don't know.
But they still did it well
watch
because it felt current. You know, like it didn't feel like they were rehashing some old stuff. They were able to make something current. I think the last Batman tour with the Robert Pattinson, I was a little skeptical about that. Like, oh, this dude from Vampire movie, but it's cool because he made it like an emo kind of Batman in like his own version. You know, so I saw that movie had a character. You know, had a vibe. It was not like a copy paste, but the aesthetics were much better than the other DC movies too.
I heard that
would you
also
say-
Logan was good, but yeah, sorry.
Would you say the Joker movie is to the Taxi Driver as Helldivers is to Starship Troopers?
Oh.
Great
That's
comparison.
good.
Great. I love it. I love this comparison.
I'm gonna play it tonight for the first time, and then I'll answer you. Because I love Starship Troopers, the movie, the book, even more. Like I read the book, love the author. Like there's a movie I watched like I don't know 10 times over my life. So I'm excited to. I'm gonna try it out tonight with some friends, and if they nail that, I'm gonna be very happy. Like not a copy, but you know, like the vibe and idea.
You love
I'm a big fan.
Helldivers. Oh, sorry, Darmar.
What was that?
I'm a big fan of Batman, for example. Huge fan of Batman. Like I've been following it since I know about myself, and I remember when Christopher Nolan was announcing Batman, and Christian Bale was. They also said about it that he will suck. The critics were very harsh on him. Turned out to be the best Batman out there for me. That's my personal opinion. He was amazing. Pattinson was, for example, really fun for me, but one thing that I'm very sad, it didn't stay. Neither Ben Affleck. Really, it just passed. But it was a cool take on the story. However, it didn't have that.
It was a nice one-off.
Yeah,
but I still enjoyed the experience. Like the vibe and the stuff, like was cool.
Yeah, it was very cool, to be honest. But again, when I think of a Batman, Christopher Nolan, it's always the second part is the one that appears in front of my mind. The Christian Bale, it was amazing. Bane, Tom Hardy's Bane was.
All right, and by the way, what I wanted to say, Tiago, is that you'll love Helldivers. Trust me, if you're looking for the vibe of Starship Troopers, because actually, like last night with two of the previous guests of the podcast last week, me and Patrick and Anna, we played a match, and I was basically the noob, and they all played. They're all level 20, 28 or something. And for the first time, I saw a Titan in that game, and it was so cool, honestly. But but they dropped in that mission just for me to see the Titan, but they killed it in 2 seconds, and I was so disappointed. I mean, because their gray gear was so OP and everything. But yeah, you love that game, and yeah, for anyone who's also interested in multiplayer, like fun, action, hard, like anxiety-inducing gameplay, like that's a game to play. Honestly, Helldivers. I recently started it. Has anyone started it as well here?
Helldivers now.
Unfortunately, I don't play video games anymore except when I gather with my friends. No, I just stopped playing them. It's not that I don't love them. Something clicked in me, and I can't decipher it. To be honest, it's one of my flaws that I can't decipher what happened there.
Interesting. All right, Emily, what about you? What are your hot takes? Oh, wait. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
I just want to explain something to Darko. While you were away, where we are talking about our hot takes that, might get people angry at us, like basically what's popular franchise you don't really get it or connect with or don't necessarily like that a lot of people love, all right? But first, Emily?
Of course.
Yeah, it's difficult to answer this question, when you've got so many friends working on those things. So I I don't want to lose any friends or offend anyone because that's not the point. But I would say that in general, I am not not a big fan of superhero movies. Although I'm pretty sure that it might be fun to design for those kind of stuff, because it's they do crazy stuff. But yeah, in terms of narration, character arcs and stuff like this, yeah, that's not for me at all.
All right, Dharma.
I will have to jump over this question. I work in that industry. Many nights I catch myself writing on Facebook something, and I'm erasing it, erasing it, because it's a dangerous thing to do. I don't agree with many movies. I don't agree with many stories. I don't agree with the political and social narrative that's going on with many things. However, it's a dangerous thing because people are get very easily insulted today. And it's very dangerous to talk about that, especially if you work in that industry. So it's better to keep it. However, Lord of the Rings for me was a big failure. But one thing for my artists to say, when I was talking with myself about that, the art has improved. The art has risen on a very high level in every movie that we watch today. It's on a very, very high level. However, the story is not. But I always say, I'm literally sad for all the directors and writers what they are made to make, because they are literally pushed with the narrative what they need to write, and it's a problem because movies are really going down. We will see. There is always up and down in Hollywood. We'll see when it will come back, but it's a dangerous slope because I'm telling you, I start writing. I remember when I wrote about Lord of the Rings, I wrote because I wrote this much about Lord of the Rings because I was very highly disappointed with everything, honestly. Not everything. Costumes were amazing and design was amazing. But I wrote and then I raised and I just wrote Lord of the Rings was amazing. And in the how do you say the
Brackets?
Brackets, right? It's bracket. In the
Parentheses?
brackets I put the numbers. When you put the numbers in the like this, it goes like this, then the number plus Zagrada in Serbian. I don't know. Let me check that. Oh my God.
Parenthesis? No?
Yeah, I think it's parentheses. The round one, not the square one.
Let the round one. Let me check immediately. I apologize. Excuse me for my bad English.
No worries.
Barrier, fence. I don't know how to call it, to be honest, because I don't know how to call it.
Yeah, I think it's parenthesis.
Right.
I just wrote Lord of the Rings was amazing, and in the brackets I wrote there, no, it's not. I mean, that was the only thing I could do, literally.
Short and straight to the point. Exactly. And Alexander, what about you?
What do I secretly despise with all my heart? That is fun and risky to say, but also entertaining, yes. Yes, anime. All of it. All of anime. I bloody hate it. It's garbage.
Unpopular opinion.
Out of five.
Get out of here.
Pick your stuff.
Okay, now with all the qualifiers and the explanations of why do I dislike it. Actually, I fucking love it. I love anime. But I love like the oh my god, it goes back to this nostalgia thing and everything. Look at me, really. We set up all of these foreshadowings for this, and now I'm gonna close in on all of them. This is story structure happening in live. So anime movies made in like the 80s and 90s when the big boom was happening. That was amazing. When like, I don't know, all the factors were like coming together. Well, you know, the post-war generation, there was people there who had grown up in conditions that really had stuff to say about life. So you had those people who wanted to, you know, touch the real world and not just make art. You had the economic boom that was happening, and there was like all of this money that like didn't know where to go. There weren't enough internet scams weren't a thing yet, so the money didn't have places to go down the drains, and it had to find other weird places to go to, and it went into these giant animated movies, these like Akiras and Ghosts in the Shells, were like these gigantic artistic achievements, but very specific to the time and very specific to like a certain generation. But I mean, have you looked at contemporary anime? Even Hayao Miyazaki goes around and says that it was a mistake, and is constantly grumpy that the other like directors and are making anime about anime. The fifth generation post modern commentary on the maid schoolgirl maid genre after the commentary by the previous two generations, but now with like an extra twist with like VR headsets or something. It's like, what does this have to do with anything? This is like anime. There is still great art there and great creativity and so on. And of course, I'm talking about only in very broad spectrum ways. But isn't it so that it used to be more interesting and it is less interesting today? They keep dying. Who just died? Akira Toriyama? The Dragon Ball guy.
Akira
Yeah,
Toriyama, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, and then Satoshi Kon died now a long time ago. Like, I don't know. Well, anyway, not very good today. Fight me.
Who was the creator of Berserk? I forgot his name. Oh my god. Does anyone
I don't
remember?
know.
The creator of Berserk who passed away like a couple years ago.
Berserk creator, I don't know
I forgot.
who is the creator.
I-
Kentaro Miura and
Kentaro
Kuyuri
Miura.
Mori. Kentaro Miura.
Yep.
He passed away. He passed away to May 6, 2021, only 54 years old.
Yeah, and like, has anyone here read or watched Berserk?
Yeah,
I watched.
A little bit.
Oh,
I
yeah,
did.
That's like one of my favorite like stories in that is made in manga or anime. Like, oh my god.
You know, when we talk about these things now, you open the subject for itself, and that's about discussing art, because it's our duty to discuss what is beautiful and what is ugly, what is good and what is bad. It's our duty as an artist to do that. But we have become so restricted and afraid for obvious reasons why not to mention things, and I think it's really putting industry down. It's really putting industry down because you can't comment. You literally can't comment on many things, and I have been discussing about that with many people and so on, because it's very slippery slope. It's very slippery slope because even if you're not insulting anybody, somebody is getting insulted. And I think that it's very damaging to art. I'm not somebody who gets insulted easy. I'm very hard to get insulted. You can literally tell me anything. After all, I grew up in communist buildings and everything where they throw many things at you, not only rocks. But I think it's artist's duty to talk about the things, but I don't know how that will progress in the future. And I'm afraid. I'm literally afraid where our art will go. Speaking about AI, I think it's necessary to say that now, because if AI came out in 2012, for example, before the world changed and so on, nobody would accept it because they would understand what it is doing, that it's stealing and so on. But today we are so confused and so afraid to say many things that we don't say them. And the world has changed. And that's why AI is art now, because only 10 years ago, artists would say, this is not art, this sucks. But today, it's opportunistic market, and it's very, very strange. Very strange. I'm sorry if I'm bouncing from the lecture to lecture. It's just poured out of my mouth because I'm very annoyed by that, because I think it's our duty as an artist to literally attack each other, not in a negative way, but to attack the artwork, to say something is bad so it can be improved. That's only my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm afraid about art students, what they will do. There are some specific subjects that are very interesting for me to look at them from the geopolitical and the social point. For example, the genders. We are changing now the genders and everything, but in art you also have genders with the form and everything. What if you can't comment on a form as a gender at all? Then you can't decipher if you're making this kind of line or if you're making this kind of line. So it's from a literally scientific point, it's very interesting to look at all of that, because I'm just trying to balance and judge where we will go with the design, because many things shape it,
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, this will definitely, like, we'll see the effect of, what you just mentioned, like, in a couple of years, and maybe we're seeing it now. But one thing that I really want to encourage everyone to do is to just, even though like everything seems dystopian, or, the A with, like, every single day you see like some new article about AI or something, or how it progress. But to me is, I know it seems like you're like using an ostrich as a strategy to bury your head in the sand and pretend nothing's wrong. But I think at this point, sometimes we should. Maybe it's a good mindset. And what I mean by that is, don't let like these things, like, discourage you from not making art. And of course, like, of course, when I'm talking to you guys are all seniors, and very good at your craft. But especially, I want to encourage this to most upcoming artists, that regardless of what's gonna happen, just keep doing art, because at the end of the day, when you get old, or you're on your deathbed, you're gonna be happy that you express yourself in this way. And it kind of ties. I know I'm kind of rambling as well, in a sense. Wait, I didn't mean that you're rambling. All right, you get the point, right? Now let me scratch it. So let me get back to that. Jesus.
There was no point, but there was no judging of the current market or anything. It was just
Yeah.
open-minded thinking. Where are we going with this in state of art? Because always everything overlaps on art, and the best artists, they knew the direction of the world that it's heading at that moment, that they could create something amazing. If you check any big company at that moment, they knew the direction of the world, they knew the direction of the masses and where to move it. When everything is blurred, you don't know. For example, I can't decipher it. I'm really trying. One of the things for me that was very interesting, when I gave a lecture about NFT, I gave a lecture and I spoke about how we will have movies where we will be able to create movie in one day, and we will be able to change the characters as we please, and AI comes 1 year later. And I was so disappointed in myself, because I felt like I called it to happen, literally, but I didn't expect it will remove me completely from the equation, so yeah.
All right, Thiago, what about your hot takes
On which topic?
on like one
Yeah.
loved
All of this.
franchises that
The franchise,
or anything
the hot takes.
that is super popular, but you don't
Oh,
get?
this one is hard for me to say because I also know like some good friends that work there, but to me, like Fortnite doesn't speak to me.
He's a brave man. He's a brave man.
Some
not
things
that
about
age.
it. What was that?
Not our age. It's It's not for.
No.
It's not designed for us at all. we're
And
old.
we're old for it, and some things about it even offend me a little bit. Like because I worked on a Fortnite map for a while, like in my previous job, so I know I got a close experience of that environment, and yeah, it's like a race to the bottom. It's how can you keep making more and more of the same, add more franchises there, like just make what's popular, like keep this machine rolling and bring in the money and stuff. But then it's sad because you look at the art that actually comes out, it's freaking amazing, right? Like I have some really good friends that are environment artists there, and they're making their best work actually. Like you look at the textures, the models, they're really pushing the technology. It's a pity that it's just the game is so silly, and feel bad for these kids that are spending so much time, like precious time on the playing there. Because when you go to the creative section where it was supposed to be creative, like new stuff, it's like red versus blue in a box room, like there's not even like a map anymore. Like the kind of stuff that people play doesn't even have level design anymore. It's like oversimplification, but at the same time there's all these talents there, and they're really pushing the art, and the stylization, and they're doing an amazing job on that. It's more like I don't know, it's like maybe it's not a problem, right? Like maybe it's just a really successful thing, but as a gamer, doesn't speak to me. I try to play, like shooting doesn't feel right, like it's not precise, like I don't know, doesn't connect to me. But it's a beautiful game, right? There's so much good stuff about it, and I understand why people play it. It's not a bad game, just for me doesn't is not a game I would sit and be there by my own, you know. I had to do for work, but I wouldn't do like, oh, I'm gonna sit here and play some Fortnite.
Speaking of Fortnite, I actually played it for the first time ever with one of my buddies like a month ago, and to be honest, it like I mean it was to me it was fun. It had some fun concepts and tools, but after like you reach level 5 and 6, because a lot of the players in the first levels are just bots, so you can get rid
Yeah.
of the game. But then I mean it's just drop in like loot for like 90 seconds, which is that's basically all battle royale games at this
Yeah.
point, and then
It's
die
kind of like
is
they're playing it like on automatic mode, right? Like they just like, oh, I need to get the loot, I need to get the belt pass, so they don't even have fun anymore. They're just going through
the objectives, the loot,
the grinding.
everything.
Yeah.
And they add the
It's too
objectives in.
fast. It's too fast. It's really too fast.
You know what I wish battle royale games would do? They would add like make the game in a way that you could kind of outsmart the enemy, not with your aiming skill, but your like strategy. Like for example, add traps, or you could set up traps or something, or ambushes that you could just like a one-man ambush, like 4 players or something like that. I wish more battle royals do that. You know? What do you think?
Yeah, but it's not that kind of game, you know. Counter-Strike is that kind of game. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's different kind. It Counter-Strike. I used to play
Valorant
it
as well.
professionally. Counter-Strike is different, but then again, they work in a different manner. It's not that they don't use tactic. It's just I like to say chess on steroids, literally chess on steroids for them. You know.
I would say that World of Warcraft PvP is that. It's fucking great. I don't know if you watch the eSport. It's not something that has that is very popular. Usually people are like, well, there is eSport in World of Warcraft. Yes, there is, and it's fucking amazing. And yeah, technicity, tactics, strategies, and bush, like you're talking about, all of this, it's great.
Interesting. Speaking of World of Warcraft, there's been news, like, I don't know if anyone's been following, that Riot is about to, I think, release their massive MMO in the same vein as World of Warcraft, like in a year or something, 2005 or 2026. Has anyone heard about that?
No.
Really?
Is it an MMO? I don't
Yes.
remember the name.
No, it's
of
a
the
project that
game.
they're working on. I think it's code name. I forgot the code name, but they're making a
They
fighting
showed some
game.
visuals, right?
Yeah, they showed some visuals and concept
Yeah.
art, but they're working on a fighting game, Project L, which actually had some of the people who are working on it on the podcast as well. And there's a MMO project they're working as well, which is kind of like World of Warcraft, but set in the world of Runeterra, which is the world of League of Legends, right? And if they actually do it, they're going to like, it's going to be insane actually. If anyone knows about the lore or the environments of that game, like
It's about time to shake up that market.
it's going to be
I
actually
must say
insane.
they are great at doing that kind of things. I must say they are great at shaking up the markets. I must say, when they made Valorant, I was very skeptic. Turned out to be pretty dope. Pretty dope. I was very
Pretty fun
surprised.
game.
Not that I was underestimating them, but I was like, this is such a saturated market. But here we are.
Yeah, Valorant eSport is huge. League eSport, obviously. But
Yeah, really. I mean, nobody before them. People tried to to occupy the territory of Counter Strike. Nobody succeeded before that. Also, nobody before them succeeded to make Counter Strike players translate to other game. And then they appeared and they did that, and that definitely had that X factor in it that nobody expected. But they knew what they were doing, so maybe you should invite them to podcast to tell you what X factor is, not me. So yeah.
Yeah, and actually they're going now. Their nearest milestone, I think, project is Project L, which is a fighting game. I don't know if anyone's seen the footage of that, and it looks really fantastic. I'm not a pro like fighting game. Of course, I've been grown up on Mortal Kombat, and I have like affinity for that game. But I think they're going up against giants like Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat. Like that's we live in an interesting time, to be honest. And it's kind of interesting. We both mentioned kind of in a juxtaposition of both living in a golden age and dark age of art and video games at the same time. It's really interesting to see how
It's more like the mainstream is in a dark age, but there's all the indies and there's like smaller creators, right? It's so much more accessible now. You just gotta have to go and look for these things. But if you stay on the mainstream, just like whatever is on the movie theaters, you're gonna be watching the same rehashed stuff over and over.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And even
So it's so strange, right? It's so strange that in our industry evolved in this direction. I was never expecting it. Maybe somebody smarter expected it, but I never expected that when studios get so much money that the games will stop because they have their reasons, and that's that they're insanely expensive to create.
There's less competition too, right? Because so much like
Same here.
one studio owns everyone, right? So
Mhm.
It was same with the cars. It's same with Hollywood. Volkswagen bought all the cars. They are all the same. I don't know if you saw the Geneva Auto Show. They're all
Yeah.
the same. Everybody's commenting on that. Hollywood. I remember in 2000s you open movies and by accident you find some 90s and 2000s. By accident you find amazing movie. Today you exactly know what you're watching. There is no going outside because they are on such a high level that the indie studio for movies can't create something on that level.
there's a really good article about this called The Age of Average. I really recommend this. It's like this guy did a study about all cars, apartments, buildings, and like why everything looks the same now. And he has some really good explanations there. Like for example, the cars is because of the air tunnels, right? Like everybody's using the air tunnel. They're trying to find this design that's gonna be the most aerodynamic, have the best mileage and all this stuff, and then it converts to kind of the same design, right? Same with phones, like they'll look like an iPhone because it's the most simple, maybe it's the easiest one to produce, and same with movies, I guess. They're like, okay, what's the easiest? Oh, just take something that works and put some new effects on top, right?
And what is interesting there the most is that they position themselves so high on the market with the quality that the quality is unmatched. And before, nobody was so high on the. You can always experiment with something new. Remember the phones, exactly when you mentioned now. Remember the old phones. Each month you would find something new. There was, I don't know,
Different colors.
different this, different that. Now they're so positioned high that there is no possibility of going here or here. There is just no possibility. You also have a cat. Is there anybody who doesn't have a cat here? I'm getting jealous.
I don't have one.
I have a dog.
Oh,
Close enough. Daniel, do you have a cat?
I have one. I close the door because
Alright,
he's
so-
very, very loud.
Only the two of us are petsless.
Yeah,
All right.
he would not hear.
I mean, if it counts, I have some cat food in my drawer. I usually have some cat food whenever I go out. I feed cats, honestly.
Yeah, I feed cats on the street all the time. Also, like they're my best friends. It's like when I draw.
That's awesome.
so what's your, if I may, what's your favorite game actually? Your go-to, your fun, yeah. Where do you find the fun in video games?
Who are you asking, Emily?
Sorry,
Who are you asking this question?
everyone, yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Daniel?
Well,
Old or new, whatever. You're from the heart.
so if I was to look according to Steam, my most played game at the moment is Squad, and then Rainbow Six Siege, Team Fortress 2.
We don't hear you. You're lagging because you're talking on the side. We don't hear you. I didn't
Sorry.
hear.
So it's mostly a lot of military games like Squad, Battlefield, Team Fortress, MGS5, Apex.
Does
Dishonored.
war call to you?
But I think there's also a lot of games that I played that are not on Steam. Like I still play quite a bit of Diablo 2 and Diablo 1, just
Oh.
because there's like things that I would like to make in Unreal that are very inspired by those games. But yeah, at the moment I'm kind of going through like games that I used to play a lot just to understand what I like the most about games and trying to make that stuff in my own games. Yeah, it's hard to answer. I play a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 as well because fun writing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and Lethal Company. Well,
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yep.
Dharma?
So the only game I play is where I gather with my boys from the youth, and we gather every 2 months or 3, and we are all 35 above, 35 to 45. and we gather to play Counter-Strike 5-on-5. Sometimes we gather 4 teams, 5-on-5, and we make a mini tournament. But we don't play online. It's strictly forbidden. It's forbidden to play online. We need to sit in the same room together.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's cool.
Did you guys had the LAN houses? Like in Brazil, we had these things called the LAN houses, like the cyber cafes, and you just pay per hour. And
Yes,
sometimes we would get a big group and just close the place from like 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Like it was a
Yes.
fixed price.
exactly.
We get all the Coke, like all the Cheetos, and
Yeah.
6 hours.
When they say Brazil has two religions, one is football, the second one is Counter-Strike. I always remember that. And we played like that, absolutely. When we were growing up, we started at age 13. We were arguing, we were fighting, the fights would break out and so on. And it stayed. We are now 35, 45, everything same happens. Probably brings me to youth. It brings me to youth, but we argue a lot. We release all the anger and stress on there.
Yeah.
And I love it. I still love to hang out with them from time to time about that. However, I don't play games beside that. I play Counter-Strike with them. Anything competitive, I play with them where we can yell at each other. Counter-Strike, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter sometimes. What did we else play? Battlefield, but Counter-Strike is the main one. That's the main one because everybody plays. We were all ex-professional players. They make me play 1.6 Counter-Strike, by the way, which is looks like made out of the boxes, literally one polygon. And that's it pretty much that we play. But Brazilians are great.
It's timeless.
Yeah.
Emily?
I would say my go-to is Dark Souls 1. And but I do love Age of Empire 2 and it's a bit of Crusader King.
Which ones? Which Crusader Kings? 1, 2,
It's
3.
the second one.
Oh wait, the Stronghold Crusader King. I kind of confused it with the Stronghold series. Yeah, but yes, Crusader is like I think the first Stronghold, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Sorry.
The Crusader
the-
ones was the first.
Dynasty games with the big map.
Yeah, I think.
I don't even know the studio who publishes the video.
Firefly. Wait, Firefly. Sorry, I remember the studios. Firefly.
Is it Stronghold? Oh,
Stronghold. Stronghold Crusader.
Stronghold, yeah. I remember Stronghold. However, I didn't. Age of Empires is better, to be honest. From Stronghold, I love Age of Empires. I mean, elephants. I will never forget that. And then you figure out that you use a pikeman to kill an elephant. It kills it fast, and everybody makes pikemans. Then I will always remember that.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
else?
For me, that's it.
All right, Alexander. What about you?
Well, currently the video game that I'm playing, it's called Putting Together the Morrowind mod pack.
Ooh.
I don't know if it will ever graduate into playing Morrowind. It's mostly about putting together the mod pack. I'm now like 300 something into a more or less stable conglomeration of game system elements, extra weird content, up-raised assets, sort of hodgepodging it together. I even gave Nexus, the mod place, my money so that I could download the mods faster and don't have to wait for the 5 seconds to download the next mod. That is how I relax these days, I guess. I scroll the mods and look what would be interested in my ideal construction of Morrowind.
I've always wanted to do that with the Skyrim and New Vegas, but I never. I don't know why. I don't know why I never did that. It's on my list. I definitely want to try mods on New Vegas and Skyrim, especially.
Yeah, it's
Skyrim.
like it's one of those commitments that you make to yourself.
Yeah.
This is going to be your life for the next 3 months or something. Like in the evenings, you're gonna sit down and you're just gonna get your mouse and scroll the mod page and yes, this one.
All right, Tiago, how about you?
Oh man, there's so many. But I think there is. I was actually thinking about this other day, so I have a good answer. Like one franchise that freaking love like seeing like the evolution over the years is Resident Evil.
Oh.
Like this game is they're always on the top, like they they keep reinventing the franchise, and of course like some entries were not so good, but like the Resident Evil 2 and 3 when I was playing back then on the PlayStation, like they really had a huge impact on me. I think was the game that made me want to do 3D because I was looking the city and like the graphics. I didn't understand what a pre-render background was. I was like, why this game looks so much better than the other ones, right? And that how like that city felt so fantastic, because it was like an American city through the eyes of a Japanese developer. So there's all this like tech, like like a gribble here and there, and I'm like, I don't know, that's really cool. I don't know what that is, just looks really awesome. And the music and the experience, like a lot of times I would get like really scared, and I was like, man, I don't want to play today because I'm too scared to play the game, And like when the game ends, like I was like, man, I can't believe they did that. Like I was fucked up for like weeks. I think I started learning English because of that game too. Like I just took a dictionary, and I was like, man, I need to understand what they're saying here. So I would like translate the words and like try to figure out. But then over the years, right, they were evolving. Like with even with the remakes recently, right? They feel very modern. Like they're always pushing the art. And I'm finally playing 7. That was one that for some reason I didn't play when it came out. So I was like, oh, that doesn't look like Resident Evil. I wasn't very interested. But now I see like how damn good they are at like storytelling and graphics. They're always pushing the art style, the engine. They this new one connected to people because they have this kind of like the found footage kind of aesthetics that is very current. Like very popular now. If you go like on each aisle, like a lot of horror games, it's like, oh, just with the flashlight. So yeah, like it's a really cool franchise that they always stayed on top of the game, so you can see the evolution of the games industry. And I'm sure a lot of the original developers are still there because the soul of the game is still there. They keep reinventing, like they're not just depend on nostalgia. They break the conventions, they keep evolving, try new things. So it's a really awesome one.
Yeah, and by the way, Emily, you mentioned favorite games of all time or the games that are our go-to. I think those are two different questions.
Both for me.
Yes, well, I mean, open question to be honest.
Alright.
I wouldn't say. I mean, if I have to pick my answer, I wouldn't say that Dark Souls is my favorite game, but in the past years, that has been the most rewarding
Yeah.
experience, I would say.
Elden Ring for me was the last great game I played that I was really invested in the gameplay and couldn't put the controller down. These days it's very rare for me to have that feeling, but Elden Ring definitely had that.
Yeah, I haven't tried this one yet, but yeah,
Oh.
on the list. It's on the list, definitely.
Oh, you're gonna love it. If you like Dark Souls 1, it feels like playing that game for the first time.
Yeah, that's
They
that's
really
a nice
surprised.
feeling.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Alright, guys, I have to go now because I have an appointment.
Alright, so do you
It's a
guys want?
pleasure. It's
Yeah,
a
let's
pleasure.
But
do the
it's
outro.
been a pleasure meeting everyone. This was a great discussion, and I'll leave with a lot of food for thought here. A lot of really good points, and yeah,
Alright.
thanks for sharing all your
No, well,
experience, and ideas. It's been very good for me to
Nice.
be exposed to like different disciplines. To like now working from home, I kind of a little on my bubble, so it's really nice to and Run Team. Like, man, thank you so
my
much.
pleasure.
Your podcast is amazing. Like, I really
Thanks, man.
appreciate all the hard work you put into it. Like bringing this information and knowledge, to people, and it's really one of a kind. There is no other podcast like this. So, congrats on the anniversary, right? That was.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, I forgot to mention. Jeez, I forgot to mention a lot of things. Yeah, 14th of March is actually the fourth anniversary. Was the fourth anniversary of the podcast, and my goal is I'm gonna keep it short because I know you're in a hurry, and my plan is to before I leave Turkey and hopefully move to Netherlands, I want to record the first 300 episodes in this studio apartment at least. So you know, I can say, all right, I did the first 300 here and that, and as you can see here, I'm like for the past 2 weeks, this is a chart I made for the editing
damn.
tasks I need to do for like
Wow.
15
Wow.
episodes. And today I just finished this one. So yeah, I have all these squares to fill.
That's awesome, man.
And I'm just making the little game for myself to keep my monkey
Mhm.
brain engaged. But that being said, I think you can all understand that because of my anxiety, I messed up the intro of this episode. I am fully aware of that. I'm sorry, you know, for anyone who kind of cringed at the intro. Yeah, that tends to happen, you know, because this is my second
Oh,
time.
you can add later.
At what?
Yeah.
You can add later. I mean, like you can record now and then add it, put it in the beginning.
Yeah, you can edit the video.
I got
on
30 seconds, all right. 1, 2, 3. You know what? You know what? I'm just gonna keep it cringe. I don't know, like it's kind of weird. Like that was original one. It would be a disservice to the first one, you know, because like even my first episodes were not really good, but I kept them. I didn't delete them or anything like that because I know in comparison to my newer episodes, it's gonna the contrast alone, it's gonna show, and I think that's kind of something really nice. So yeah, I don't care if it was cringe. Yeah, whatever. My next episodes will be better because you know, hopefully we can do this for everyone who's in the call. You know, I hope I can have you all for future podcast episodes as well. I mean, the group discussion ones. I think that this is really fun. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it. And also one last thing. For the next color and graphic team for the next season of the podcast, which will start at episode 300. What color do you all suggest I should pick? Because I had green for the first one, blue for the second one, and yellow for this season. Every 100 episodes is one season. What color do you think I should choose next?
Pink,
I've got that before. Pink and purple.
Orange, like the helmet behind.
violet,
No,
violet, violet.
Pink, violet, orange. Emily?
I was gonna say acid lemon, but that's already what you have. So
I
so,
like
yeah.
that different. Everything is different for people. It's
But,
different.
orange is good. Did you mention orange?
No, but the Tiago did. Alexander, what
Oh.
about you?
It is time to merge the spectrum together back into white.
Wow.
But that's for the 1000 episode.
Ah, well.
No, white.
Something to
White
work
is,
towards.
yeah, white is
I think
pretty.
orange is the one. They chose the orange. There is two of them, so it's orange.
Daniel, what about you? You could be a tiebreaker.
Orange. Let's
All
do
right,
orange.
All right, fuck it.
Like a
Orange.
majority.
Orange, pink, violet. But orange is a majority. All right,
Orange
we'll
is
see.
such a happy color. Yeah, my helmet is orange and blue from the inside.
No,
for the
the orange is perfect on the helmet.
You know what?
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll go with orange.
that-
I'll go with orange.
Here, blue and orange. You can have this. That's it.
I color pick the orange on this and go with it. All right. And all right, that's about it. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Tiago. It was very cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Pleasure.
All right.
Take
Pleasure.
See you all
Have a good
next
day.
time.
Bye bye.
Thank
And thank you, Ramtin. Very cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.